Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are officially live. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is Wednesday, March 4th. We are live. We have a green pre-market, which we will find out in about 40 minutes if we are actually able to trust the pre-market. Because, we've had some green pre-markets before and it went the opposite direction. Hopefully this day is different, but we've got some updates that have happened over the past 24 hours. Some of them are bearish, some of them are bullish. And I think it's kind of leading to the potential of a reversal today. Once again, it's really hard to say because we've gotten faked out in these green pre-markets so many times, but boy, is it nice to see. And honestly, if you were up a little bit earlier today, it was more green than it is right now, but still not bad. Nvidia up 1.28%. That is green. Micron, which had a pretty ugly overnight markets. We'll talk about why. It has to do with South Korea. That's up 3%. The S&P 500 pushing 683 right here, up about 1/3%. You got Intuit, Palo Alto, your software names, SoFi, Meta, Hood. I think the biggest runner of the morning, which is Bitcoin, is 71.4, not just 68, 69, which it was teetering around over the past basically 2 weeks, but 70. And then not just 70, 71. And we got up to almost 72. We were at 71.9 early this morning. So risk on assets are catching a bid, quite obviously, with Bitcoin getting this momentum again. Maybe when the market's open, we get a rug pull, but it is really nice to see them actually take off a little bit. Silver, gold had devastating days yesterday. They're back to recovering 50% of those losses. Broadcom has earnings today. We'll talk about that. That's up 1.3%. Rocket Lab's up 2%. You got a green pre-market. You got a green pre-market, Ethereum back over 2,000. Hopefully we can hold on to that green, but I do think there are some good reasons for why we are seeing green, and we will keep going from there. So, bunch of headlines to talk about today. Again, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Happy Wednesday morning. We've got macro updates. We've got jobs data that came out about 30 minutes ago. We've got headlines on Nvidia, headlines on Anthropic. We've obviously got updates about what's going on in Iran. We had some major things happen yesterday in regards to certain oil tankers and oil facilities that got hit pretty bad. And, that temporarily spiked the price of oil until Trump came in and he basically said, hey, we're going to make sure we can backstop the insurance for all the tankers. And we're going to escort our tanks through the Strait of Hormuz, AKA, if you won't let us through, we're going to make sure we can get our way through. And so that kind of stopped the bleeding on that stopped the increase of the oil prices going up yesterday, which stopped the bleeding on the S&P. The VIX took a big nosedive after that tweet came out from Trump, and oil prices started falling. XLE is down another 1% on the day. XLE was up 5%. It's now down 1%. So energy names, Exxon, Chevron, VG, COP, all of those took a bit of a hit yesterday. And, they've still been on a really good run. Oxy's up freaking 30% this year. So it's not something to be upset about, but obviously the people that went super heavy into oil yesterday, assuming that this conflict was going to last, I think the number one thing that Trump is trying to tell the American people is that we are going to make sure, even if the conflict lasts, oil will not go up. And Besant and Hegseth kind of reiterated that today, which we'll talk about as well. And we will keep going from there. On top of that, we got a bunch of earnings. So we'll talk about the earnings from last night. We'll talk about the earnings from this morning. A couple companies ended up doing a pretty good job. And then we have a bunch of earnings in the afternoon that we will discuss as well. And we'll see how this market plays out. All right. Good morning. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. You know what we got to do before we get this started. It is time to get the coffee in place instantly. Again, I really don't get why people spend their time in Starbucks. All you have to do, again, for those that don't know how to do it, you take a spoon, throw it into the water. There it is. I feel like Bob Ross teaching people how to paint. That's what I feel like. Because when you watch Bob Ross, he's amazing at painting. I mean, he's one of the greatest painters of all time, in my opinion. But he makes it seem like anyone can do it, right? Like he just makes it friendly for people to learn how to do this complex thing, which is painting. And I think I'm doing the same for instant coffee. I think I'm doing the same. So there we go. Cheers. Good morning, everybody. Sensational. All right. Let's get into it. Let's start off with Korea. Let's start off with South Korea. So what happened last night on South Korea? Because I think that's going to determine a lot about how the pre-markets are acting. It was actually pretty bearish, and it ended up continuing to be bearish. I thought it might affect the U.S. markets at least a little bit, but U.S. markets are doing okay. So the South Korean index ended down 12% again. It was down 8% yesterday. So we're talking about a basically 20% haircut on the index for the entire country in 2 days. Now, again, imagine if the S&P 500 or India or Japan was down 20% in 2 days. Like, that is pretty aggressive to deal with for an entire country. And unfortunately, that happened for South Korea last night. Now, there's three major reasons for this. We talked about this a lot yesterday. Number one, again, the South Koreans are loaded up. They love leverage. We talked a lot about that yesterday. So if the margin calls are starting to compound, then that can create some issues. Number two, Korea is exposed to two memory names that comprise 50% of the index, Samsung and SK Hynix. I do not think there is a fundamental problem with the memory names. In fact, I have been trying to do some deep dives on these memory names, and my goodness, they look so unbelievably undervalued. Now, I know people will say, well, they're cyclical. Yeah, I get it. I've been making that same argument as well. But I mean, if you put a basic 30 PE on the 300% year-over-year growth that Micron is expected to do in fiscal year 2026, that's a $900 stock. Stock's at 380. So, I mean, now, will they actually get there? I don't know. But you can understand why investors are willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, because if it's not cyclical, if it's going to last a bit longer than expected, then yeah, people are going to load up on memory. Having said that, there were some headlines over the past couple of days, particularly around Nvidia's new chip architecture, that might decrease the need for the type of HBM memory that Micron, SanDisk, SK Hynix are supplying. I don't think that headline is that realistic. But that could have, created some pain in the memory names, and that's why those two stocks took a hit. More realistically, Samsung, SK Hynix, they're up a lot this year. I think people are taking profits. And if you're getting margin called, and you're already up 100%, you might say, you know what, screw this. I don't want to lose out on my profits. I'm going to continue to sell. That creates a cascade of selling that caused the circuit breaker yesterday for South Korea 2 days in a row, which hasn't happened in a very long time. And I think that's why you're seeing the selling right here. So, that's where you get the argument for why South Korea is getting hit, at least from a memory perspective. And again, the way you justify a 30x PE on a lot of these names, they're growing 300%. Would you pay 30 times for something that's growing 300%? Fiscal year 2027, I think they're expected to grow 250%. So it's not like the growth is going to go down from 300% to 10%. Like, if you think they're able to continue that growth, I think investors can justify the PE. Forward PE is 11 right now because, again, investors are cautious of their ability to grow. But if you think they can, that's why these memory names are getting the premium. And then the final reason why South Korea got hit right here is, once again, Korea is very exposed to the LNG imports from Iran. Last night, spot prices actually reached 25.4, which is more than double last week. And Qatar's output remains suspended given the attacks from the drones that were on two particular facilities in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. And it supplies a huge amount of oil and gas to Korea. So I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, particularly because South Korea was up 50% going into yesterday. Now it's actually up about 30%. So again, it's lost 20% in the past couple of days. But it is one of those things where the whipsaw can go back and forth and potentially have an impact on U.S. equities. Why? Because the South Koreans are loaded up on leverage on Nvidia, Tesla, Palantir, Robinhood, Rocket Lab, definitely the SanDisks of the world, right? The memory names in the United States. So, if that creates more pressure, then that pressure can lead to some pain in the U.S. And yesterday didn't end well. Like, the South Korean index ended down 12%. Even after the circuit breaker, it went down another 4%. So I think tomorrow's open, which we'll find out around 11 p.m. Eastern today, is going to kind of tell if investors are ready to buy the dip and stop selling it off. EWI right there down 2%. But that was one of the biggest stories of last night. It's not really affecting the pre-markets. Nvidia's green, Micron's green, S&P is green. And I think the reason it's not affecting the pre-markets is because, once again, we are not living, at least from a United States perspective, in a super expensive market. We have high multiples, but those multiples have also been compressed. There's earnings growth to justify those multiples, definitely on names like the Nvidias and the Microsofts of the world, the Metas of the world, the Googles of the world. But the S&P has also basically been flat for the year. So the momentum that the Kospi had going up 50%, in 2 months, less than 2 months, and now going down 20%, reasonable. The S&P was barely up this year. So, the idea that it would fall 10% after barely being up this year, yeah, it's possible. But it's just also that momentum downside is not really as likely. Upside hasn't been there. And so I don't think it's necessarily something to panic about just because South Korea is getting hit. Ironically, Druckenmiller did that interview with Morgan Stanley on Friday that went super viral, and he mentioned he's long South Korea. Then 2 days later, South Korea falls by 20%. So I wonder if he sold within these 2 days, and he knew that after he says he's long South Korea, everyone's going to ape into it, and he would, use that to exit, or if he continues to be long. But if it's more of a multi-year play, then He'll probably be there for a while. Okay, red or green poll. Let's do that in the chat. Green or red? What do we think we are going to end up on today? And so that's what we got going on with South Korea. Now let's transition to some of the AI names and the headlines we got going on. And then we'll talk about the Iran updates from yesterday. So Nvidia, you guys who are OG Tesla probably know this guy. I know about him. I don't know that much about him, but I've seen his name before. Leo Koguan is the largest retail investor in Tesla. He owns about 1% of the company, or sorry, I should say 0.9% of the company. And he just bought 1 million shares of Nvidia last night. He says, I plan to buy more. AI is not a bubble. It is only just the beginning. Tesla's embodied physical AI. Nvidia is an enabler foundational layer of AI. So this guy owns about 27.2 million shares of Tesla. And from my understanding, he's never owned Nvidia. And for the first time, he decides, all right, it's time to get into Nvidia. I know he's not given Elon the friendliest time over the past couple of years, and he's publicly disagreed with him. But one of the reasons he continues to be long Tesla is his belief in energy and what Tesla energy can do to scale. I think it makes sense that he's buying Nvidia. I mean, I'm going to have a Substack article coming on this soon. I know we haven't had a couple articles get posted, but we're going to have about 3 or 4 next week, as I've been kind of just game planning them, stacking them up, and they'll be out all next week. One of those articles is going to be doubling down on Nvidia and the thesis behind it. I mean, it's starting to become a bit more obvious. And as big players enter into the region, you're also recognizing that a lot of people see that something should not be trading at this cheap of a multiple. The other really thing that's important is GTC, which is going to be Vera Rubin's kind of not introduction, but roadmap, I guess, that Jensen will lay out in 2 weeks in San Jose. I think that also will remind the street, wait a second, there's one company that's able to grow at this rate. There's one company that's able to innovate every year at this rate. And there's one company that has the supply chain to fulfill these orders, and that is Nvidia. So as long as that GTC event goes well, which I think it will, that should be a tailwind for the broader industry. Now, Broadcom has earnings today. That's going to be really important. They are not Nvidia. They're not growing as fast as Nvidia, but they are a massive, massive player in the AI space. And I expect Broadcom to, put up some decent results. My only fear about Broadcom is that their multiple is not as dirt cheap as Nvidia, even though the stock has taken a big hit. So maybe on a momentum perspective, they've already had enough pain. And they're likely going to say, don't expect any OpenAI revenue in 2026. The reason the stock fell in December from 420 to 310 is because of 2 things. Number one, their non-AI revenue didn't grow. It was flat year over year. So although their AI growth was 80%, their non-AI revenue was flat. The street wasn't happy about that. And then 2, they signed this massive 6 gigawatt deal with OpenAI. They did a fancy podcast with Greg Brockman, the president of OpenAI. They said, hey, they're going to spend $80 billion with us over 5 years. And then Hock Tan is like the CEO. Yeah, don't expect anything until latest 2027 or earliest 2027. And the street was like, but you just signed a massive deal. And they were like, yeah, but it'll take some time to get that money. And I think if they have something like that again, that could be a little ugly for Broadcom. Having said that, it's not at 420. It's at 315. So maybe that's going to be a little bit easier for Broadcom to navigate what's going on. Broadcom right there, 317. That's up about 1.32%. In the pre-markets, Nvidia is up about 1.23%. And Tesla is also up 2%. It feels like it's been forever since I got to show a Tesla price target, but today we have one. Bank of America is back in the story. They are resuming coverage on Tesla with a price target of 460. We value Optimus, Tesla's humanoid segment, at over $30 billion. Optimus will likely be first used in manufacturing and possibly replace a portion of the 13 million U.S. manufacturing jobs with future adoption in households. Separately, we value the energy business at $90 billion and expect Tesla to have a leading share with its residential Powerwall batteries and its megapacks for use by utilities and data centers. So it's nice to see one of the larger institutional banks come in and say, yeah, we're coming back to Tesla. We believe in this Optimus story. We believe in the energy business. And once again, they're only valuing it at 8% of the overall valuation for Tesla. So, they're obviously leaving a lot of upside for robotaxis and a healthy premium on what they think that robotaxi is going to be able to do. Speaking of Tesla, Elon is doing some pretty smart financial engineering when it comes to SpaceX. The TLDR is that XAI has a lot of debt, like a lot of debt. They burned through $1 billion a month. They bought all these GPUs, yada, yada. So there's just, and they're not generating a lot of revenue. The last reported numbers are about $100 million in revenue. So because of their extreme debt and because their lack of revenue and now the acquisition by SpaceX, XAI shareholders now owners of SpaceX stock, they just bought back $3 billion of junk bonds. They still have $17 billion left. Bloomberg did an investigation last night, was like, hey, how are they going to pay back this $17 billion of debt? Because at the end of the day, you can't go public with that much. I mean, SpaceX is only doing 15 billion of revenue. So you can't have more debt than revenue for a company worth 1.75 trillion. Like, it doesn't make sense. And then you have to remember XAI just raised $20 billion in a Series E financing round. I think those investors gave Elon the money to buy GPUs. And basically, he's going to take all that money and pay off the XAI debt so that their balance sheet looks pretty clean when they go public. It honestly makes a lot of sense. It's not that unique either. Like, there's always these mergers and acquisitions that consolidate debt on the balance sheet when they try to go public. So it makes sense, but it is just a very smart thing for Elon to do if he wants to make this $1.75 trillion valuation make sense by getting rid of all the debt. And he's essentially using investor money to get rid of the debt and hopefully repaying them when SpaceX goes public and, basically gives them a double on their money. Now, this only works if SpaceX will have a successful valuation, which if we go super bullish in the next couple months, I think SpaceX will easily be able to get that IPO valuation that they want. They're trying to raise 50 billion. But if the valuation flops and the IPO flops, then using all that money to pay off the debt for investors to not really get a return, because again, they were getting that stock at the current valuation of SpaceX or a little bit below it. So whatever additional upside is when the stock goes public is really going to be the return for those XAI Series E investors. And time will tell if that is successful. But that's what you're going to have to see when SpaceX goes public. Hopefully in June. They're filing their S1 in March, so a lot of us will be able to go through the numbers, but I think in June, they will actually go public. CrowdStrike, they crushed earnings yesterday. Their net ARR revenue growth was the highest in the history of the company, 47%. They added another $341 million of net ARR. They beat on the top. They beat on the bottom. Stock is flat. RBC came out. They said 550. Dan Ives came out. He said 550. Like, a lot of these street targets are continuing to recognize that although CrowdStrike is expensive, they deserve a multiple. At least it's not down. Maybe it goes down when the market opens if the entire market goes down, but pumped a little bit to 409 last night. Then it fell down 5%. Now it's kind of flat. So SaaS names are getting somewhat of a comeback. I would imagine cybersecurity should be able to achieve a little bit of that comeback as well. But right now, CrowdStrike is flat. IGV right there is up 1% in the pre-market after being up 2% yesterday. So maybe, just maybe, software is getting close to a bottom. Again, every time we say that, the market opens and then it dumps. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Adobe continuing to get a pump. Michael Burry went long Adobe last night. It's up 4% as of yesterday, up a little bit in the pre-market. Adobe breaking back to the 270s. And then Salesforce also got a bit of a pump yesterday, up again, another 0.5% in the pre-market. Robinhood. So they have an event today. I will be there in New York. So because of the Robinhood event today, guys, I really tried to do the numbers. I do not think I'm going to be able to do a market close. The event is pretty far. It's in New York, which I'm close to, but it's near JFK, which is just like deep into the city, and the traffic to get to JFK airport is crazy. So I actually really wanted to do the market close today because we have a bunch of earnings that I'm excited about. The biggest one being Broadcom, but there's just no way. Maybe there's a shot, but from what I'm looking at when it comes to traffic, I will be like 3 hours late if I actually do the market close. So if we don't do the market close today, we will have Broadcom earnings. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But Robinhood does have an event today. That's going to be really important. That stock's up 4.63%, and I think that's up because of Bitcoin as well. Now, 3 things that Robinhood announced yesterday that were really important. They have doubled banking in 3 weeks. So they had banking deposits of 400 million. That is now at 800 million in 3 weeks. I mean, again, the scale at which they were able to grow these numbers is just unfreaking believable. But they're doing it. 400 million to 800 million in less than 3 weeks. And I think that's the real bull case this year, getting the non-transaction revenue parts of the business to scale. Again, they only have about 25 to 30,000 banking accounts. 50% of that is direct deposit. They are on a $10 billion run rate for deposits in banking alone if they're able to continue scaling like this. And so very nice to see that. Equity and option volumes are up in February, year over year. Crypto volumes are up. And then net deposits in February again were 5.5 billion, which were massive. I am not going to be taking my car because parking will be insane if I try to park near JFK. So I'm going to have to Uber, which is going to be like $130. It's going to be ridiculous. But even in the Uber, it's going to be prime time traffic. That's why I think I got to leave a little bit early. So in this event tonight, I really have no idea what they're going to announce. I have zero knowledge or information of what they could announce. They keep teasing it with this whole family finance thing. The event is called Take Flight. I genuinely think it might be like tax planning, estate planning, joint accounts, custodial accounts, something like that. But I'm curious because it's not under the brand of Robinhood Gold, which is what they tend to do for Gold subscribers. And they do that event every year. Maybe they're doing that event later this year. This one is going to be Take Flight. And I don't know what the hell Take Flight means. Maybe it's around IPO access. Like, I really don't know. I want to see things that are outside of the transaction revenue part of the business, aka equities, options, and crypto. And I want to see momentum in new products and services that independently can make money even if people don't trade. And I think that's what Robinhood knows they kind of need to do. Shiv, the CFO, yesterday, he was asked at the event that he did with JMP Securities, hey, is 2026 a digestion year, aka a year where you guys have to deal with the stock being flat in order to grow? And he was like, no, that's not how you should think about 2026. That is not our intention. And I actually believe them because they bought 2.5 million shares at $85 and they bought another 800,000 shares at $120. So I'm pretty sure the management team at Robinhood is like, dude, what the hell is going on? Like, we're undervalued. And so I don't think they're thinking of this as like a transition year. I think they're thinking of this as a year in which they're going to continue to put up massive growth. It's just the market's not cooperating right now. And so, could we see Robinhood back to 90 pretty quick? Yes, but I do think Bitcoin's going to have to cooperate. And at least today, it's cooperating as well. Yeah, maybe they're going to introduce international markets as well. Hopefully that helps in their attempt to kind of continue diversifying the business. Nvidia right there, that's up 1.3. Robinhood's up 4. Bitcoin at 71,667. Okay, let's talk about the war because we got a lot of stuff going on there. Now, again, a lot of people might be confused. Why are the markets green even though this war is still happening? And once again, we've talked about it for the past couple of days, but I do think elements of it are being priced in. And then yesterday, it felt like it wasn't priced in, but then Trump tweeted this thing that you're seeing on the screen right here, which is basically him essentially giving a put option to all the tankers that are going through the Strait of Hormuz, making sure to say that the United States will backstop everything financially, insurance-wise, et cetera, to make sure oil prices do not spike at the level that people are expecting them to spike. Gas prices across the nation are already at $3.11, up from $3. So not a massive increase, but still there is an increase based on the shock to oil. But take a look at oil futures right here. They're red. So I don't think energy is not the play anymore. I just think if you've been positioned for energy, the positioning had to start probably a month ago, at least a couple weeks ago. But brand new positioning for energy here means you are expressing a bearish sentiment on this war and that it is going to be way worse than expected, which it might, and it might, end up leading to oil prices going even higher. But as per what we're seeing, this administration is trying to make sure that is not the case. Hexeth, here was his update this morning on what happened with the events over the past couple of days and kind of where U.S. strength is in relationship to Iranian strength.
Iran's senior leaders are dead. The so-called governing council that might have selected a successor, dead, missing, or cowering in bunkers, too terrified to even occupy the same room. Senior generals, mid-level officers, enlisted ranks, they can't talk or communicate, let alone mount a coordinated and sustained offensive. That's not great for morale. The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. In fact, last night, we sunk their prize ship, the Soleimani. Looks like POTUS got him twice. Their Navy, not a factor. Pick your adjective, it is no more. In fact, yesterday, in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win. Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh.
So you got Hexeth trying to speak from a pretty strong position of strength in regards to what is going on in this Iranian war, which again, it's not technically a war, but they keep saying it's a war. So like all of them keep using the terminology war, even though they're telling us it's not exactly a war, which begs the question, is it a war? Is it not a war? And, we're 4 days into this thing. It definitely feels like it has the chance to become a war. unless things can lighten up soon. Now, the only sort of real indication of where the trajectory of this is going that we got from Trump yesterday is primarily around this idea of regime change. And essentially what Trump said is that we want to continue decimating their communication offensive, their military, and obviously their leadership, which the United States has done a decent job at, but not a, they've not really gotten rid of everybody. And that is when we will allow people to run, to roam the streets and like liberate themselves, right? Like that's literally what Trump said yesterday. He was like, the people need to wait a little bit before we tell them to go take over the Capitol. We have to get rid of everybody. But once we get rid of everybody, we'll give you the signal and then boom, go take over your government. That's like how he's been communicating it. In fact, there was that Wall Street Journal headline yesterday that Trump is now potentially thinking of arming and supporting the Kurds, the Iranian rebel group, to fight back and to help citizens on the street actually take over the government, which might be successful, might not be successful. But they are thinking of boots on the ground, just not American boots on the ground. The other big headline this morning from the war is that the New York Times, and I don't know how accurate this is, but they reported that through essentially backdoor conversations, the Iranian military reached out to the CIA last night and said, we are ready to end the war. Do you want to negotiate? And quite frankly, for everyone wondering why our future's up, I think that might also be one of the reasons. I mean, the New York Times is a pretty big publication. So if they put out that the Iranian military is ready to give up and essentially compromise, and I think the part of the article also said that Trump is considering it. If the Iranians allow him to kind of choose who would be part of the government, he would let them keep a lot of their leadership, but he would also want to pick who's like the next essentially prime minister of Iran. That could be one of the reasons why the market is up. I mean, now granted, it's hard to trust if anything is real in this day and age, especially when Pete Hegseth is talking about putting their Navy at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. And so I think it's going to take time to see if that ends up materializing in any meaningful way. That would be a massive headline if Trump comes out to, that would kind of be a little bit of a taco, right? I mean, that would be Trump essentially saying, yep, war's done. We did it. We win. And instead of it being a one-night operation like Venezuela, it would be a 4-day operation. My gut tells me that's not how it's going to go. It's not that easy for it to end like that. I think there is a probability that happens simply because at some point Iran's going to realize that they can't keep fighting back. But I don't know if that happens soon. And if that does happen soon, then, maybe there's a world in which this stops quick. But if it doesn't, then this is going to be something we have to deal with for a much longer period of time. So I think that could be a reason why the market's rebounding, but also the market could be rebounding because it's been 2 days of ugliness and we might get 1 day of a little bit of green in the midst of that red, which then will get red tomorrow, right? So it's like until we see a trend, we can't really get too happy about how this stuff is playing out. Private payrolls. So this is what we got on private payrolls. Why would that be a taco? Well, if we don't get a meaningful regime change, I think that would be a taco. Again, the article in the New York Times outlined that the majority of Iranian senior leadership would be in place. Trump would get to move around a couple pieces, but the bad people that they said we have to kill and get rid of because they're, terrorizing the regime. The Iranians are not just going to give up to give up. They're going to want to compromise. And part of the compromise is going to be, we'll get rid of our nuclear program, which the New York Times article highlighted. They would say they would start to get rid of it, but realistically, do you actually trust them to actually get rid of it? And then 2 is they would want to keep a decent amount of senior leadership in place, which again, if we don't actually get a regime change, what was the point of this? And so, and that's why I think the NYT article might not be real, because I don't think Trump at this point wants a regime change. Trump also tried to talk with these guys before the attacks. They didn't want to talk. And then you have the Israel angle in this, which Israel, definitely, I don't think wants a negotiation after 4 days of fighting. They would like this to continue. So I'm skeptical of it, but if it does end after 4 days and it results in very little regime change, then, people are going to be wondering what was the point of even allowing this to happen. Private payroll, 63,000 versus 50,000. So this was actually a really good report. 58,000 of the 63,000 jobs were from education and health services. Construction jobs were up. Manufacturing were down. Professional services lost 30,000 jobs. So the market expected 50. We came in at 63. Again, that's not the worst in the world. The rate cut probability still is down. It's at 2.6%. A good labor market means that we're likely not going to get the rate cut, especially if we have inflation continuing to go higher and PCE and PPI continue to prove that. But it's nice to see that the labor market is at least cooperating. Now, are these jobs real? We'll find out in a year because, 2025, we revised 1 million jobs down. So hopefully. Because it's private payrolls and not non-farm payrolls, it feels more real than not, as ADP does this in a way that's separate from the BLS. But at least it's not horrible to see some momentum in the jobs data and allowing that to take place. Okay, so that's what we got on jobs. Basent was live as well, and he talked a bit about some of the stuff that's going on, in particular around oil. Let's pull that up real quick, and then we'll keep going from there.
Different position than when the Russians invaded Ukraine. We are at all-time high in production, both for oil and natural gas. We are an exporter to the rest of the world, and U.S. LNG continues to flow around the world. So this is a very different ballgame than in February of 22.
Secretary Bessent, thank you for being with us this morning. The idea of providing insurance to all of those carriers, how does that work in practice? Is it something that those certificates are being issued at the moment? We've watched the tankers and all of the ships that are sitting on either side of the Strait of Hormuz, afraid to go through it. I don't believe those ships have started moving yet, but how would that insurance work in practice? When would the Navy actually step in and start doing some of these things?
Well, again, Becky, I think we're inside the 12 or 24-hour window from our announcement yesterday. And that Ben Black, president of DFC, has already had a plan in his pocket for months for this contingency, and we will be moving out to the ship owners, to the insurance brokers, and over the coming days. And I can also tell you that the Iranian Navy is substantially degraded. Most of their ships are sunk, and the U.S. has naval and air dominance in the region.
So once again, Basent kind of echoing the same arguments around what Pete Hegseth said, which is that the United States is really dominating how this is playing out. The other couple quotes from the Basent interview was that oil is very much supplied. U.S. energy dominance, in particular, the whole drill, baby drill, has allowed us to get through this. And he also said we are in full contact with countries across the world. The SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, is also full, not only in the United States, he mentioned, but also with other countries. I don't think we're going to have to tap the SPR. I mean, oil prices would have to get closer to like 95 to 100, I think, for us to meaningfully tap the SPR, which is what was happening back in 2022. And Biden had to tap the SPR. That's when, like, at least in Jersey, we were looking at like $4.99. I think some of the gas stations in Jersey didn't want to put the 5 handle, so they just put $4.99. But basically, we had $5 gas. And in California, I think it was like $7. So that's the last time we really touched the SPR. For now, we don't need to, but once again, Basent making the argument that we are well equipped to get through this based on U.S. energy dominance, and this should not be a broader issue for the United States. By the way, this is the quote from that New York Times article around what happened today. At a minimum, Trump officials will expect any agreement to stop the bombing to include a pledge from Tehran to abandon or drastically curtail its ballistic missile and nuclear programs and its support for foreign proxies like Hezbollah. In return, Mr. Trump has suggested that he would allow Iran's surviving leaders to maintain their economic and political power. Now, that to me was the most interesting part of the article because, yes, they've taken out a lot of people that have caused a lot of pain for the people that live in Iran. But the surviving leaders maintaining their economic and political power, will that actually result in any meaningful level of liberation for the Iranian people or democracy or any resemblance of a regime change? I don't know, which is why I think I'm a bit skeptical that this is going to end anytime soon. But, if it happens, then we will see how the markets ultimately react to it. Why do Jersey stations don't let you pump your own gas? I don't know. We still have people in Jersey that have jobs that pump gas. When I was with Arnie in DC at the first AIP con, we drove all the way to DC and then we had to drive back. And I was like, oh, I need gas. And we went to a gas pump in DC and I was just waiting there. And Arnie, he's from Italy, so he's just sitting on the passenger seat. And we're just waiting. We're waiting. And he's just looking at me. He's like, are you going to get the gas? I'm like, I'm waiting for the guy to give me the gas. He's like, don't you have to get it yourself? I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, shit, this is not New Jersey. And I had to get out the car and figure out how to pump my own gas. It was an incredible experience. I've never did it before, but yeah, this is what New Jersey does. I don't know why, but that's what we do. Wow, it's illegal to do it in Jersey. I didn't know that. I didn't know it's illegal to pump your own gas in Jersey. Now I don't need to because I have the Tesla, but it's something that I think every New Jerseyan takes pride in, not having to actually pump our own gas. So yeah, I do have to pump my own energy though into Tesla. So I do have to do that. Mercado Libre right there. That's up 1.46%. Shift 4, Mercado Libre, and SoFi have had insider buys over the past 2 weeks. So you're seeing some of these companies come out for the fintechs and take some stakes. SoFi right there up 3.2%, breaking 19, which is very nice to see. 1921. It was at 1860 yesterday. And then Robinhood, wow, $80 for the first time and feels like forever. Literally for the first time since earnings, I think. We're touching 80 here. And again, Bitcoin continues to help. So nice to see some of that momentum on Hood. All right, last couple updates before we get into the market open. CoreWeave signing a multi-year deal with Perplexity. CoreWeave will deploy Perplexity Enterprise Max internally. Perplexity currently handles 1.5 billion questions a month. I know Perplexity is not getting that much attention anymore ever since Anthropic kind of took over as like the legacy AI company that's like making everyone realize how valuable they are. But their new computer product, was just essentially agents on steroids, is really interesting. And 1.5 billion questions a month is pretty incredible. I'm sure OpenAI is doing like 1.5 billion questions every hour, but it's still a massive, massive load for Perplexity, and they're going to need a lot of compute to be able to make that happen, which is why they are partnering with CoreWeave. Speaking of Anthropic, last night was pretty incredible for Anthropic. So they have increased their revenue projections. This is official. This is not just from sources. Dario was at a conference yesterday at JP Morgan, and he disclosed these numbers. And the numbers are just unbelievable. So they hit 19 billion ARR. It was 9 billion 2 months ago and 14 billion 20 days ago. This is unfreaking believable. I mean, at some level, it's getting to the point where I think we have to recognize the reason they're growing this fast. We talked about Cursor yesterday. They're doing 2 billion in revenue. They doubled that in 3 months. They were doing 1 billion in December. They're now doing 2 billion, and their valuation is at 30 billion. So they trade at 15 times sales. That's not that crazy. Probably not profitable, but right now it's about growth. Anthropic, I doubt they're profitable as well. But dude, 20 billion in ARR. This company was doing 1 billion back in 2024. This is just unbelievable to see some of this momentum. Yeah, not too bad for a bubble. And so once again, a lot of this ARR is because businesses, financial institutions, governments, hospitals, maybe not the US government because they're stopping the work with Anthropic, but all of these entities are recognizing there is value in paying for these models and signing up and working with Anthropic. 80% of that 19 billion ARR, by the way, is enterprise. That's what Dario said yesterday. So I think it's very, very sticky, juicy revenue. They don't have to worry about consumers, right? ChatGPT has to constantly worry about keeping your attention and making you subscribe for $20 a month. Anthropic just gets this massive lock-in with enterprises, and they don't have to worry about it. So very good for NVIDIA, very good for AMD, Broadcom, very good for the AI sector. We need these companies to grow, and they are proving they can grow. Having said that, OpenAI is also growing, but unfortunately, there's a little bit of trouble in paradise for OpenAI. So yesterday, Sam Altman had an all-hands meeting to discuss why he is taking this Department of War contract. And it didn't really go that well. I'm a Claude Pro user. You know, Steve just upgraded to the $200 a month version of Claude as well. I mean, you got regular people seeing the value in this, and they're starting to upgrade and pay more for it. So basically, Sam Altman to his own employees says, you don't get to weigh in on what we're doing with the Department of War. He says OpenAI doesn't get to make operational decisions on how the Department of War uses their AI. He also says that he admits the deal looked opportunistic and sloppy, and he probably shouldn't have rushed to get it out on Friday. And on XAI, he says, I think there's going to be another actor in the government we have to worry about, which is XAI. But the reason we should be winning is because effectively XAI will say, we'll do whatever you want. And at least we have some level of guardrails on what's happening, whereas XAI will have no guardrails. He also said, we don't get to make decisions for the Department of War. And even if he doesn't agree with everything, he does not want the company to express opinions about whether certain military actions are good or bad ideas. Now, Dario has a fundamentally different approach. Dario is absolutely saying we want to express our opinions on whether certain military actions are good or bad ideas in the context of AI. And that is where you get the friction with this administration's approach to adopting new models, which again, the Federal Housing Administration is getting rid of Claude. The Treasury is getting rid of Claude. The Department of War is getting rid of Claude. Ironically, they use Claude for the Iranian operation. But the inability for a company to have a non-biased and apolitical view on how their software is being utilized by the country's military is what is creating the friction between at least this current administration. You know, if the Democrats win in 2028, maybe it'll be different, and the AI companies. So Sam Altman sees an obvious opportunity right here. I think he's basically telling his employees, look, if you guys want to get your juicy stock-based compensation and want to get this company to $5 trillion valuation, because we just raised it $830 billion, our investors are expecting probably no less than a 5X. I don't think Masa-san from SoftBank gave him $40 billion for it to, you know, go to $70 billion. Then they need to win contracts. They need to win a lot of contracts. And there was some Bloomberg reporting yesterday as well that this OpenAI government contract with the US will lay the framework for them to be able to expand to every single NATO government actor and continue to install their software as well. So, I mean, we're talking about tens and tens of billions of dollars of revenue, sticky revenue that is going to come from entities that have unlimited checkbooks, aka governments across the world. And so I get why Sam Altman's doing it. But Claude is still number one on the App Store. And although I do think a lot of people are leaving OpenAI to express their dismay of it, Katy Perry kind of started this whole revolution by canceling ChatGPT, and she inspired a lot of her fans to do that as well. I think the average person like my mom and dad are not going to leave ChatGPT. They don't even know what the hell's happening with Claude. They don't even know what Claude is. So although they are losing a ton of people, I don't think it's going to make a big dent in the 900 million weekly actives that they have. All right. 3 minutes until we open up the global capital equity markets. Another headline here is last night, Trump said he's suspending old trade with Spain after Spain said that they are not allowed, or the U.S. is not allowed to use its military bases for operation in Iran. Spain came out this morning and they said, hey, this is not possible because it would be a violation of international law. They said this is an illusion that we can solve the world's problems with bombs. They said we should not be making repeating mistakes of the past. And they said war basically is not acceptable. They said no to war. They also said they have faced this moment before during the 2003 Iraq war. So Spain and the UK being two of the biggest actors in terms of US allies that have come out and condemned the United, like legitimately condemned the United States for taking on these actions. France and Germany have gone the opposite direction. Trump was live with MERS yesterday. And, you know, he basically said, yeah, it's going to be tough for all global economies to deal with the rise in oil prices. But if the United States needs to do this, then we support the United States. Spain and the UK have gone the opposite direction. And so I guess over time, we're going to see if it actually continues with this policy of no trade with Spain. I don't think that's actually going to happen. Like, I think it's going to be tough to completely turn off all trade, but that's the back and forth that Spain and the United States had yesterday. Salesforce right there. That's up a little bit. Adobe's up a little bit. Robinhood. Let's see if we can keep that 5% pump. Nvidia, she was going for 183 this morning. Back to 180. A little bit of a red candle. We got 30 seconds until we get into the open. Put in the chat, what do you think? Do we get a rug pull or not? Do we get a rug pull at not? We got 20 seconds. I'm already seeing the red candles pop up. Google's got a red candle. Nvidia's got a red candle. SoFi's got a red candle. Bitcoin's got a green candle. Bitcoin trying to push 72 again. Let's see, folks. Let's see. It's been an ugly 2 days. Maybe, just maybe, we get to make a trend to the upside. But if not, then we will once again be stuck in the chop of this market. Wednesday, March 4th, 9:30 a.m. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market is once again open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Nvidia opens green, but red from where it was in the pre-market. Nvidia 180.2. Again, it opens green, but it is red from where it was in the pre-market. Where is the S&P? S&P opens green, actually doing pretty well. S&P 683. That's going above where it was in the pre-market. So S&P maybe potentially a bit of a leading indicator for some of these other stocks. Robinhood 81. We are finally above 80. It took a while. About 3 weeks, but we are back above $80, $81.27 for Robinhood. That's up 6.7%. Bitcoin going for 72. She is going for 72. Tessie falls to 397, but still green on the day. Broadcom 314, that's green. IGV, that's up 0.5%. South Korea, once again, down about 2%. XLE, down 0.5%. Again, energy taking a bit of a hit. Micron, that's up 4%, even with the memory names in South Korea getting hit. Micron not really feeling that pain. CrowdStrike, that's up 2%. They had great earnings. They deserve it. Ross Stores, that's up 7%. They also had a great earnings. And Box also had a great earnings. That's up 7%. Intuit's down 0.5%. Palo Alto's up 0.5%. Nike just went red. Meta, 663. Meta was stuck at 630 basically for the past couple weeks here. So seeing a bit of a breakout. VG, unfortunately, natural gas prices are down 1.5% this morning. That's why VG, which is in the natural gas business, is down 6%. So that's why that one is taking the hit. Microsoft 404, that's green. Where's Palantir? Are we at 150? Wow. Back to 150, baby. Back to 150. If we can even hold above 147, I would be happy today. 150, that's up from 125. That's up from 125. That is not too bad a recovery if you got in anywhere near that 125 to 135 range. Nvidia right there, 180.50. That's still green. BMNR, 8% on the day. Ethereum, 2100. EOSE, that's up 6%. OSS, that's up 3.73. Apple, that goes green on the day. HIMS is up 0.5%. Nubank is green. Rocket Labs green. Plug Power is up 7%. How about ASTS? Did that get some love? That is back to $100, 8%. ASTS was 79 on Friday. So you're talking about a pretty big move right here from 79 to 101. They guided for $1 billion in revenue in 2027. That is not slowing down. It feels like a pretty green day 2 minutes into the open when you have these types of stocks running and actually gaining momentum. However, we really got to give it some time and see if we, are able to hold it. But definitely feels like there's a lot more buyers coming in. Bitcoin, 72.5. Wow. 72.5. That is also very green. That is a $4,700 candle, folks, from last night. 4,700. AST has also got some upgrades this morning. All right, so that's probably helping it out. Nebius is up 5% as well. All the data center names getting some love right there. CoreWeave is also up 5.7%. CoreWeave took a nasty haircut after earnings. It was down 30%. So a lot of these names, again, they have been punished. Even if you don't like the business models or the valuations, it's not like they haven't taken a hit on their stock price. And maybe we're getting a little bit of recovery right here. ASTS got a price target to 139 from Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank. I love when Deutsche Bank gives upgrades because then I can say Deutsche, which I think is like, I just love saying that word. But Deutsche Bank right there, 10.9% on ASTS. Wow, 102. That's green. Rocket Lab's got to be at 73. Rocket Lab 72.38. That's also up 3.2%. Wow, coin. We were talking about this a couple of days ago. We talked about this last night with Jason. This one is very, very beta against BTC. I mean, Robinhood gets a pump, but Coinbase really gets a pump when Bitcoin takes off. And you're seeing that right here, 12% up on Mr. Coinbase. Now, again, Bitcoin gives us a nasty $5,000 candle to the downside. All this green momentum on MicroStrategy, BMNR, Coinbase, Robinhood, it goes away. But we've also had a lot of pain on Bitcoin and a lot of consolidation, I would say, on Bitcoin for the past 2 months. So it doesn't have to break out back to 100, but if it even kind of normalizes around this range, that would be nice to see. BMNR right there, that is up 8% on the day. Why is this happening? Why are we so green? So again, the one reason I think I can point to Palantir 151, absolutely moving higher, is the New York Times article that the Iranian military secretly reached out to Trump last night to negotiate an end to this war. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. I think that's causing some of this momentum. On top of that, we had 2 days of selling. So if some of the war and the worst of the war is priced in, you also had that Trump put that he put on yesterday against insurance for oil tankers. So that kind of calmed the market down. You can definitely string together a couple of narratives to say we should be getting a pump. I just want to see if it lasts. It's been 5 minutes. I want to give it at least 30 minutes, at least an hour, and see, can we actually hold on to this green? AMD right there, that is up 1% as well. And you're seeing some momentum there. Qatar said LNG production will stop for 2 weeks and will take another 2 weeks to ramp up. That's why the VG is getting hurt. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's also fair. And maybe if that production doesn't take 2 weeks to ramp up, in case we get some better updates than what Qatar already said, then that could help VG. But ultimately, look, it's not just VG. It's Oxy, it's XLE, it's Chevron. All these stocks are down today because the worst of the energy increases, at least for now, perceptually, have been priced in. And these stocks are up. I mean, VG was $5 or $6 in January, right? It's at 10. So it's not like just because it's not at 13 anymore, people can be too upset. Like a lot of movement has happened year to date. It's just that really extreme move that we saw in energy yesterday. You know, if oil prices start coming back down, then maybe that's not going to be the case. S&P giving up some of the gains, but we're still at 681, down from 683. So we got a little bit of pain right there. Hood from 81 to 80. Palantir still pushing forward, 150, 170 again. I think Palantir is also getting a defense premium right here, which is helping it escape some of the high beta momentum in and of itself. AMD, that's up about 1%. Microsoft 404. Microsoft was 390 yesterday, so that's getting a nice little move. KKR, your private credit names are going green. KKR, Apollo, Blackstone. ServiceNow was at 115 in the pre-market. It's at 113 right now. Just turned slightly red, but at least that's above 105, where it was stuck at for a while. Netflix, $1 away from 100. $1 away from 100. And we have to see if that can go higher. Amazon 211, that's up 1%. PayPal, that's up 0.5%. IONQ, that's up 0.5%. What's red? Costco, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, McDonald's. I bet Verizon's probably red. Verizon is indeed red, down about 1.3%. AT&T is red, down 2%. Obvious rotation from value to growth, at least in the first couple minutes of the market open. But once again, we've seen this story before. It can switch very quickly. But it's at least nice to see a little bit of this momentum. Not sure why Grab is getting hit right here, red on the day. I think it probably has to do with C Limited. Yeah, it has to do with C Limited. See, I haven't gone through all of their earnings, but you know, there were some nitty gritty things you could pick at. But overall, I talked to a couple people yesterday. Most of them are buying the dip on C Limited. In fact, I talked to one person who was in this stock in 2022 and just recently got back in, and he was like, dude, at 87, this is a no-brainer for the 38% revenue growth and 60% EPS growth you're getting. But I think the international stocks in general, with the Dixie going higher, is also taking some pain. The Dixie right there at 98.83. So that could potentially be causing some problems around the international names. Obviously, South Korea getting hit today, still down about 2%. So you might be seeing more of the international names either take a breather or get affected by C Limited's earnings, which weren't bad. So I don't know why the street's too upset about that. CrowdStrike goes red. CrowdStrike goes red. That's down 2.5%. Mike says, I loaded up on CE yesterday. Literally, the earnings were down primarily to a tax adjustment. Yeah, that's what I heard. I haven't really gone through the earnings yet, but that's the main thing I heard the bulls say, that this was, I mean, it was down 30% yesterday. Like, it's trading at 21 times forward earnings. Like, this is, I mean, some of these stocks, they're mismatched with how the market's interpreting them. And, you know, we've seen that with SAS throughout the year. We've seen that with Meta. Meta went to 740, came right back to 660. So a lot of these names, I think, are waiting for that ultra bullish signal to break out. We don't have that yet. We might not get that in the midst of a war, but maybe some level of momentum from, you know, Meta being close to 615 is something that we can settle for, at least in the meantime. Lumentum also going red. This thing was at 788 on Monday. It's now at 694. So some of the photonics names getting hit right here. Applied Optics, that's up 0.4%. What's the other one? Coherent. This one is also up 1%. It was at 304. Now it's at 284. Probably taking a regular breather. I wouldn't read too much into it. But if the memory stocks are down, that's why those are going to take a hit. Raytheon is down. Lockheed Martin is down. Zeta's up 3.3%, which is nice to see. Iran denies intelligence ministry reached out to CIA for talks. Okay, so it makes sense that they would say that, because they definitely don't want people to think they are positioning from a sign of weakness. But they also might be telling the truth and might be saying that, you know, we didn't actually try to negotiate with the CIA. Remember, in the 12-day war back in June of 2025, I think it's really important for everyone to remember this, because even I forgot about it last night until I read up on it. When Iran struck back after the US and Israel struck back, it was symbolic. It wasn't real. They literally called Trump 30 minutes before they attacked. They didn't hit any American bases. They didn't kill any American civilians. They literally, it's almost like throwing a drone at a desert just to say that you fought back, so that their state media could then spread the propaganda to their citizens that, hey, we did not let the big bad America win. We struck back. We attacked them, yada, yada. And so, you know, there wasn't really any meaningful conflict or response from Iran. They just did something to kind of say they hit back, but they even let us know what they were going to do. This time it's different. This time they're upset. And this time they are waging a proxy war against all their allies in the Middle East. So they obviously don't want it to come out that they tried to negotiate an end to this war. That would show they were, you know, negotiating from a sign of weakness. So that's one reason that they might be denying it. But the other reason might be they actually don't want to end the war because, they feel that they need to get revenge. Having said that, at some point, I don't know if they're going to be a match for the U.S. military, and that's when they might have to capitulate. Silver right there, that's also up 2.4%. Is the S&P going red? We are 30 cents away from the S&P going red. Let's see. Do we actually end up red for the day? A lot of these growth stocks still holding on to their momentum. Even Robin at almost 81. You're not really seeing that fall yet. CoreWeave up 3, Nebius up 5, Palantir still 151. Is it a bull trap once again, or do we actually get to make a trend? Bitcoin just below 72. SoFi did lose 19. Nvidia just lost 181. Broadcom loses 317. Tesla loses 400. Micron loses 390. But all these names are still at least up 2 to 3%. It was a nice 10 minutes of fun with you guys. It was 12 minutes, first of all, but it was a nice 12 minutes. I mean, again, we're used to this, though, right? We're used to this. ASTS still up at 101. We've literally gone through this at least twice a week, if not more. S&P just went red. S&P just went red. At least twice a week, we've seen it. Maybe it's not a massive green pre-market, but like maybe at like 10:45, we flip green, everything's great. And then by 11:15, it fades out, right? So at some point throughout the 3 hours in the market open, we see this pump and then inevitable retracement, which once again, I think that is why it is more of a covered call market than not. This is the perfect day to sell some covered calls because things are super green and there's a lot of premium to potentially be collected. AMD right there, 192.55, TSM at 355. Did you see the new MacBook? Well, Apple didn't have their event yet, right? Apple's going to have their event later in the day. But yeah, they already introduced the MacBook. Yeah, I'm seeing the video right now of the MacBook. Okay, so I guess it's called a MacBook Neo. MacBook Neo. Interesting. I wonder if they went to the Matrix to find that name or something. But there you go. Apple. We'll take a look at the video in a bit. Apple 262 going red. Yeah, I think they'll have the event in a couple hours. And we'll see what they say. And then Robinhood's also having their event tonight. So we'll have two events today, Apple and Robinhood. S&P, again, fighting for green, 680.50, but still kind of red. Still a little red. There's got to be a compelling reason to buy the new MacBook. I mean, every time they introduce one, it's got to be the M5 chip. And they've got to, I mean, I think at this point, people just care about how much faster is it and can the new chip actually handle the compute that most people are trying to do, whether it's with OpenClaw or gaming or editing. Like, as the advancements in chips continue to become exponential, you'd want the productivity of the devices to also match that. And then, you have the whole edge AI compute angle to it, which is what I think people care about as well. Adobe 272, Salesforce just went red. Crowd CEO on CNBC. Okay. Let's see how he defends this quarter against what Anthropic. Well, I think he'll be on CNBC later. He's not on CNBC now. Yeah, he'll be on in a little bit, and then we'll see what he has to say. George Kurtz, I mean, dude, he deserves the credit. I mean, 47% net ARR growth, and the stock is red. I understand CrowdStrike is expensive, but still, it's a pretty incredible level of growth that these guys are putting up. S&P goes red. ASTS loses 100. Robinhood slowly losing the 80s. She's 30 cents away. If we can even hold above 77, 78, I'd be happy about that. VG officially going down 5. Coinbase losing 200. Do you still have your grab $7 calls? Yes. I have December 2027 $7 calls for grabs. SoFi 1885. That's up 1.2. Nvidia is actually going up as everything's going down. Nvidia was going down actually when things were going up at the early part of the market open. So you're seeing a reversal right there. Palantir at 150. Bad PMI. Let me check what the PMI was. We should have just got it just now. That could explain it actually. PMI comes in at, it's not that bad. 51.9 versus 52.3 expected. And then services was 51.7 versus 52.3. That can't be that bad. That's like less than 100 basis point miss. Market's upset about that. I feel like that's more. I feel like this is more, 945 shenanigans that the algos like to do versus the PMI results. Yeah, PMI is fine, dude. The labor market data was fine today. That's probably not the reason. Jane Street changed it to 945. Yeah, maybe that's what's happening. Nebius right there. That's up 5%. Nebius actually not seeing a red candle, 92. Palantir back to 151. Also, Michael Burry complimented NVIDIA today because NVIDIA is now changing how they include stock-based compensation into their GAAP financial reporting. Tesla is now the only Mag 7 that still excludes stock-based comp. And Michael Burry said this was the right decision for them to make. And as I was reading the article this morning, I agree as well. I mean, NVIDIA does about 120 billion of net income. 6 billion of that is stock-based comp. It's a very minuscule amount for keeping the best talent in the company. And so it's not really going to affect their financials. Now, the SaaS companies can't do that. The SaaS companies can't do that. In fact, as I was going through some numbers this morning, do we forget that CrowdStrike's not profitable on a GAAP basis? Snowflake's not profitable on a GAAP basis. Like a lot of these software names actually don't make a GAAP net income, which is why I think, once again, Palantir gets a premium because it's really hard as a software company to keep your margins, manage your stock-based comp, manage your dilution, and get some money to the bottom line to hit EPS. And not that many software companies do it. So, retaining profitability is not easy, and that's something that Palantir is able to do, and that's also something NVIDIA is now including with stock-based comp. Where's Amazon today? It was at 203 yesterday. Amazon, wow, 212. Amazon getting the pump. Not sure why. NVIDIA 182.65. NVIDIA going for 183. How about Meta? Meta going for 658, actually down from 662. What about Microsoft? That one goes red. So Meta, NVIDIA, Amazon making the real move here. And really, it's in NVIDIA and Amazon. I don't see any headlines here that could be causing it, but you're definitely getting up. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Claude and Amazon. I forgot. I mean, Amazon owns 20% of Anthropic, and Anthropic just put out, basically $20 billion ARR numbers, up from 14 billion from 20 days ago. 6 billion in 20 days. This is getting crazy, the growth of Anthropic. So I think the market might be saying, hey, Anthropic raised at 380 billion. They're probably worth closer to 500 to 550 billion. I mean, OpenAI is doing relatively the same amount of revenue as Anthropic now based on these new numbers. I think they're doing like 5 billion more, which is not that crazy. And they're worth 730 billion, almost double Anthropic's valuation. So maybe the market's just pricing in that's higher. And as a result, Amazon goes up because they own a lot of it. Zoom also has been catching a bid because they own a decent chunk of Anthropic. So some of these proxies is what people want to use to get exposure. Ondas, that's slightly green on the day. Zeta, nice day. That's up 4%. Where is the VIX? We've got to be red today. VIX is red by 4%. Not a big red day, but still red. Lululemon, that's flat. Target, that's up another 1%. Pinterest actually breaking 19 after that activist investor went in. How about AMD? That is green, 195. Google also just flipped green. Well, it's about to. It's at 303, 30 cents away. SanDisk just went green, even after the South Korean implosion from last night. And Micron holding on to that green. Yeah, even worse. OpenAI has an 840 billion post-money value. Yeah, because 730, that's right, is pre-money. If you add the 110 they raised, you get to 840. It really doesn't make a lot of sense if Anthropic's at 380, OpenAI's at 840, and Anthropic's doing 80% of OpenAI's ARR. Who knows? Maybe Anthropic surpasses OpenAI's ARR because, again, they have enterprise clients. You can sign really long contracts with them. OpenAI has to keep growing users, which I think they will. Sam Altman has run into a little bit of a hiccup given all this controversy with the Department of War. But the point is both companies are growing, and that's really good for NVIDIA and AI. Amazon right there, 212, that's up 2%. Palantir, 150, still holding it. Snowflake, 167, and then Apple. That is red on the day. Nebius pushing for 93. When they pump, they pump. This is one of those markets. When everything pumps, it pumps. When data centers pump, they pump. I mean, if Oracle's up 1% on the day, Nebius is going to be up 2 to 3%. Nebius right here up 8% on the day, going for 94. CoreWeave, Iren, all of them. Iren should be at 44. Iren's at 42. Still up 8% on the day. Not too bad. But when they go down, they also all go down. So today we're seeing them Go up. Mongo getting a little recovery after the pain that it had. How about the RSP? RSP is down 0.3. S&P is flat, which means maybe you're getting some tech rotation. Wix, I know a lot of you guys like this one. That's up 9%. They had a good earnings. I believe they missed slightly on revenue, but they beat on EPS. Base 44, which is the website builder that they own, is now doing $100 million in ARR, and they expect to buy back the entire amount of repurchase authorization that they laid out by the end of this year, if I'm not wrong. By the way, base 44 was doing $3 million of revenue in June 2025. It's now doing $100 million. 3 to 100. You're talking about a 33x in less than a year on an AI product inside of a website builder. If these types of companies are putting up that type of growth, you can only imagine what's happening with the foundation model companies, if not the software companies that are trying to get the agentic enterprise ready to scale. And all of that just means this broader AI revolution probably is not slowing down anytime soon. Meta right there, 662, Microsoft 403, and then Nvidia 182.30. Where is AppLovin? 460. Dude, this thing was 350 last week. Violent swings to the up and downside. But there you go. AppLovin getting some love. Have you tried base 44? I have not. But I mean, that growth is pretty damn incredible. Pretty damn incredible. Is Hood at 82? Wow, Hoodie, 82. Okay, so it's probably also pumping today because we got an event, and the market knows that when Vlad has an event, he tends to put out some really good updates and gets the street excited. So it could be pumping on that. Obviously, Bitcoin up 6% is very much helping. Coin, are we back at 200? Coin back at 200, 203. Dude, when's the last time we had a market open like this? Or we actually had this much green? I mean, we've had a couple market opens of 2 to 3% on our favorite names, and then it kind of fades away and it's whatever. But today we're talking about 7%, 8%, 10%, 12%. I mean, some of these names are really showing momentum here. And then all your value names are red, which is sort of evidence for a bit more rotation. Aero Environment, that's flat on the day. Best Buy, that's up 1.7%. They had a good earnings. How about the SaaS names? Let's take a look at SaaS. SaaS is all green except Salesforce, Atlassian, Twilio, and CrowdStrike. No, I'm not an IREN. I'm in Nebius. Again, I sold a chunk of Nebius to buy Nvidia at 104. But I think I had IREN at like $28. I sold it at 40. It was a while ago. It was only 100 shares, nothing crazy. But Nebius was my main pick. Robinhood right there, 82.50. S&P 681. And then Netflix. Put in the chat, if you bought Netflix, if you took the flyer on Netflix, are you selling here or are you holding on? I think a lot of people are just holding on to their Netflix because it's not that often a company like this trades at 25 times earnings, which is basically where it was at from 75 to 80 bucks. Like that was the cheapest Netflix got in 5 years. So I don't blame anyone to not take the profits here on Netflix because if it gets that cheap again, guess what? A lot of people are going to buy because they just got $3 billion for doing nothing. So I really do think Netflix is relatively safer. I'm not saying buying here is means you have guaranteed upside, but the downside doesn't feel as scary as it was a couple weeks ago when they potentially would have to shell out $80 billion to buy Harry Potter. Decent amount of people say they're holding. Anna said, I sold Netflix today. Mame says, my biggest holding is Netflix. Didn't have Netflix before they started falling. I sold 10% to lock in some profit from buying at 75. That is not a horrible idea. It's always nice to take out your cost basis as well. But yeah, I don't think Netflix needs to go back to 70 anytime soon. I mean, there's just not a catalyst to get it down there outside of a macro drawdown. Which is the cool thing about stocks, right? It's like, sometimes if you get in at the right moment, like we have a friend who might be watching here or not, Louis. This guy has 100,000 shares of Nvidia. His average is $2. Like he kind of doesn't need to worry about Nvidia going back to $2 anymore. Even if you got Nvidia at like $40, like, I mean, you kind of don't have to worry. You have a big margin of safety. But that happens through not only being early, but allowing the gains to just compound over time. And if you don't have to worry too much, then it's not the worst thing. Amazon, where is Amazon? She is making a really big move right here. 214 on Amazon. You're getting some excitement right there. 214.20. I wonder why this one's getting a premium pump right here. I didn't see any price target upgrades or anything like that. But I guess just this got beat up a lot. Oh, we already talked about Anthropic. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the reason. The market's really liking that Anthropic news to give Amazon the pump. Google, that didn't flip green yet, right? Google is just away from green a little bit. Tesla is green, trying to get back to 400. Again, the big news on Nvidia was that the largest retail investor in Tesla bought 1 million shares of Nvidia yesterday. So you do have some new buyers coming into the story after being OGs in some of the other big tech stories that we've seen, like a Tesla. Pound right there, 150-180. Let's see if we can break through 152. We touched it. Are we going to break through it again? 150-189. I don't think we can claim victory against Burry yet. I think this thing getting back to 165-170 is when, you start to feel a lot more comfortable about Palantir's stock price. But at least for now, I think Burry forgot to estimate that when geopolitical conflicts happen, Palantir tends to be involved. 152 has 1,000 shares. 153 of resistance has 14,000 shares. 14,000 shares. Nubank right there, that's up 3.5% on the day. Meta continuing to get the pump, 665 on Meta. Nebius, what a fantastic day. Look at that. 9%, 94.60 on Meta. IGV, that is also up almost 1.5%. Crypto is really getting a bid here. If we can break above 72.50, that would also be very nice. How about Duolingo? Is Duolingo green? Yeah, dude, it's a green day when Duolingo goes green. 3.5% on Duolingo. Again, we got a lot of time to be rug pulled, but when these many names are going green, it is encouraging to see. Do we have any more macro data today? We already had PMI at 10 a.m. Oh, yeah, we're getting services PMI, ISM. Okay, so we'll get that in about 2 minutes. We'll see if that affects the market. But that little tiny dip that we saw like 10 minutes ago, where everything had a red candle, that's pretty much recovered, which feels encouraging. That red candle didn't turn into something worse. Even Microsoft recovering, going green again. So now we just got to keep it. Palantir breaking over 152. Does Nebius have an event today? I don't think Nebius has an event today. The major headline on Nebius, I think we talked about it yesterday, was that they got approval for a data center in a new location in Missouri. First gigawatt scale US AI factory in Missouri. The campus will scale to 1.2 gigawatts on 400 acres, and Nebius is projecting $650 million in pilot payments over 20 years based on this new data center. So I think that if I'm not wrong, yeah, this is their first data center in the United States, which is also probably why the street is happy about that. If they do have an event today, then hopefully leadership says even more good news about what they're doing. Goldman Sachs, okay, cool. All right, so if we can get some good words from them at Goldman Sachs today, definitely be nice. Keep this momentum. Again, I don't really think a lot of this stuff moves Nebius. I think it's the sentiment around the data center trade that moves Nebius. I mean, if Nvidia breaks out to like 200, 220, Nebius is going way higher. Like, it's just not going to stay depressed if you have the broader AI trade intact. But, Nvidia took a nasty haircut after earnings. So obviously, Nebius, CoreWeave, all those companies are going to take some hits. Duolingo still up 2.6. Amazon 215. 215. For Mr. Amazon. I miss our 2024 days when we counted down the resistance levels. The bulls in charge was epic. Yeah, well, 2024 was cool because we had both Hood and Palantir just breaking through resistance every day. And then you had Tesla breaking resistance. You had Nvidia going through. I mean, just every day you had a lot of different names breaking through different levels, which was fun. But this market's not 2024 anymore. A lot of these valuations have matured, and that's okay. That's what happens. It's not easy for them to just break through those levels all the time. But I also don't think they have to be discounted to 50% haircuts the way they have. And maybe we see a difference in March. Snowflake right there, 1.71%. CrowdStrike's up a little bit. Let's get the data on services. We have a big beat. Whoa, 56.1 versus 53. That's a 3-point beat. That's not small. Let's pull that up right here.
22 and prices paid going down, which is a good sign. 66.6. The evil number in the rearview mirror turns into 63.0. That would be the smallest price it paid, the inflationary component, going back to March of 25. Now, if we look at new orders, we're looking at 58.6, well above 53.5, well above 53.1 in the rearview mirror. 58.6, that would be the strongest since September of 24. And finally, the employment side, which is key considering we had ADP today and we have the big February jobs report on Friday. 51.8. We were looking for 50.6. Rearview mirror 50.3. 51.8 would be the best going back to February of 2025. We see right now that we're at 407, up 1 basis point in a 10-year, and at 351 in a 2-year is unchanged. Treasury market through all of this has, for the most part, been quite calm. Sarah, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Rick Santelli.
Market likes it, folks. We are staying green right here. S&P continuing to push higher.
As for the rest of the markets, just want to check where we are as we enter day 4 here of the strikes on Iran. Obviously, energy and oil prices and gas prices, that's at the center of the storm. And actually, there's some give back today. Not a lot, but crude oil here in the U.S., it's down 0.75%. Brent, the international benchmark, down 0.5% after we saw a big jump over the past few days on disruption concerns. Maybe it's helpful that President Trump did say that the U.S. would help escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz if necessary to get that oil flowing from the Middle East. A few other key hotspots in terms of market ripple effects from what's happening in the world. The Korean market, the Kospi, you guys, it had a record fall overnight, down 12%. So the hottest market in the world goes really into panic mode. It's only been open 2 days this week, but in that time, it's down about 17% in that time period. What's happening here? Well, Korea is a big importer of oil and gas. So when prices spike, there are concerns there, and it was a one-way bet on the.
And we talked about that in the morning. They are a massive importer of LNG, and as production has shut down across a variety of Middle Eastern nations, in particular Qatar, that's creating a little bit of the pain. We are holding on to the green. You're not seeing massive weakness. Yes, there are some levels that we're getting rejected at. 183 on Nvidia, 150, 250 on Palantir. SanDisk around 587. Robinhood, I wouldn't say it's really rejected. It's about 30 cents below its high, but that one's holding up. Bitcoin, not really seeing above 72 yet, but it's trying. Overall, you're just seeing a relatively green day. Iran, 10% on Iran. 10% on Iran. That's a massive move, dude. Massive move. $4 right there. 42.80. Amazon, why is Amazon up again? I think that Anthropic revenue number run rate is getting the market to be more excited about the valuation. Amazon right there, 215, 3%. Should we get into Koru? It's 2x leverage. Isn't Koru 3x leverage? Yeah, it's 3x leverage. I personally would stay away from this stuff. In fact, there's this company that filed with the SEC to apply for 5x levered ETFs. And the SEC last night sent them a letter, and they were like, buddy, don't even try it. It's getting a bit ridiculous when even the SEC is like, yeah, look, we allow a lot of shit. We're not allowing 5x leverage. It's getting kind of stupid. So, yeah, I think 3x might be the most that we're going to see. But again, any type of levered product, it's it's really tough to touch them and hold on to them. Most of these should be used as trading instruments versus holding on to them long just because of the NAV erosion. But you do have a lot of people. I mean, this thing has $1 billion in AUM. KORU has $1 billion are betting on 3x up or down South Korea. So it's quite incredible, the risk appetite that is there. Nubank right there, that's up 3%. Meta's up 2%. Tesla is up 2%. Is the SaaS apocalypse finally over? I think we need a few weeks, not days, but few weeks of seeing consolidation in IGV, because I think people tried to call the bottom multiple times and it just didn't play out. But, you know, how much lower does it really have to go? I mean, they took Microsoft to 380, which is the highest holding in IGV. How much lower does it really have to go? By the way, speaking of Microsoft, someone yesterday in the option flow bought $95 million of Microsoft calls out of the money. 575 to 625 strike, which is 40% higher than where we are right now. If you take a look at the RSI, which is not the perfect technical indicator, but below 30 tends to be oversold, you've got Microsoft at one of its lowest RSIs in the past 10 years. Which explains why someone would be doubling down on those options, super out of the money. And if Microsoft pumps, IGV is probably pumping. So I think Microsoft's a big indicator of if software has bottomed. Lemonade, is this up today? This is up 5%. This one took a big haircut over the past couple of days as well. Yep, Wix had good earnings. Nate says high beta is back, so I'm back. I don't know if high beta is fully back. Today it feels like it's back. I ran right there up 11. But I just think we've been through the story so many times. Like, we're going to need some actual proof to see if it's back. Again, if you're wondering why we're green today, it might be based on Iranian tensions kind of easing. I say that with a lot of hesitancy. There's some reports saying that there could be negotiations coming up, which is honestly the only reason I'm thinking why we're green. I mean, outside of that, it's just algos, which is not the best reason. So maybe that reason has some legitimacy. If not, then we just got to be ready to deal with whatever volatility comes through. Pounds are trying to go for 152 again. Do you agree with Farzad on Lemonade? No, I don't really get the Lemonade thesis. All I understand about Lemonade is that they do a lot of stuff with insurance, but their moat is AI. I don't get that. Now, you could say the growth is good. You could say the valuation, the $4 billion company could become an $8 billion company. I agree with that. You know, it's a small cap, essentially. It could definitely double if the growth continues at the level that it's at. But I don't really understand the moat. Like, every time I hear it, it's just, well, they have AI powering insurance. I'm like, okay, but I'm sure a lot of insurance companies are using AI. So, but Lemonade has good growth. They're growing faster than Progressive or Allstate, right? So if you're buying it as a growth stock, I get it. The moat itself, I've never really saw for Lemonade. But nonetheless, they have a very passionate retail community. And so there's a lot of people that do like that name. ASTS, that stock, 102, up 10%. As that one continues to go green. The jobs data also could be a reason. Yeah, we did beat by about 13,000 on the jobs data. Not crazy, but still enough for the market to maybe not be too upset. And then again, PMI and services, ISM, also not bad. So I guess you've got those reasons put together for why we're green. By the way, Jensen's going to be speaking at Morgan Stanley's conference today at 1 p.m. The other companies that are going to be there, Intel, Microsoft, Nvidia, Meta, CoreWeave. So we should probably get a lot of quotes throughout the day around what these CEOs are saying, and if they start, signaling at some of the demand they're seeing or at some of the early forecasts for Q1 earnings, which is what they tend to do at these conferences, that would be bullish, and that could also help the market. By the way, this is another reason I don't think we're going to have a crash. Take a look at the S&P 500 put delta positioning. It is at the highest level since 2010. Like, we don't get a crash when everyone's ready for it. We just don't. We can get pullbacks, we can get corrections, but a crash, full-on bear market, if everyone's ready for it, the market is not that kind to pay out on all those puts. Like, usually it happens when a small percentage of people think it can happen, not when everyone's ready for it. So I do think that should be more power for the bulls, as there is a wall of worry for us to climb. Bitcoin, are we breaking? 72. breaking out above it. Let's see if we can get above 72.5, which is that morning resistance on BTC. The number one performing stock in the S&P 500, someone asked, is SanDisk. It's up 147%. The worst performing stock in the S&P 500 year to date is Gartner, which is an IT services company that's down 35%. The one right above that is Intuit. Wow, look at some of these names that are down year to date. 72.1 on Bitcoin. Phenomenal companies. Workday, AppLovin, Intuit down 30 to 35% across the board. Robinhood's number 492 down 26%. DoorDash is here. I mean, these are amazing companies that are at the bottom of the list. And if you go up, the top 10 companies are SanDisk, Moderna, Texas Pacific Land Corporation, Corning, Generic, Teradyne, Western Digital, Comfort Systems, Keysight Technologies, Ciena Corporation. A lot of stuff in the AI infrastructure space that is part of the bottleneck for compute build-up. And that's why those names are getting the momentum. Bitcoin, 72.1. Hoodie, almost 83. She's trying. S&P 683. Rocket Lab is 7150. Rocket Lab above 71. Let's look at the semis. They are all green except Qualcomm, which is 10 cents away from going green. Dell, Lam Research, ARM, Marvell, TSM, SMCI, Intel, ON, AMD, Nvidia. All of those are green today. Do you think Broadcom can go up after earnings? Look, Broadcom's down a lot from the December highs. So any good news, I think, could be interpreted as bullish, especially if they drop some crazy guidance like NVIDIA. I mean, if they drop NVIDIA's type of guidance, this is not a $4 trillion company. They might have a much better shot to actually hold their pump. But again, I'm just worried because, if they don't have any OpenAI revenue and maybe there are other parts of the business are not growing as fast as the AI business, which were exactly the reasons it fell in December, it's tough to, if you don't have a Broadcom position, to go long right before earnings, just because earnings have been such a surprise to the downside more than to the upside this entire quarter that it might not work out. But exceptional company. I know people that work at Broadcom. I mean, they swear that it's one of the best names out there in terms of just the level of innovation and tech that they're putting forward in the ASIC space. Now they just got to beat some of these numbers. ARK is even up today, 3.2%. Look at that. ARK is up. Coinbase up 12%. Webull also has earnings today. That's another reason I want it to be live for the close. Again, I'm probably not going to be live for the close today, but I want it to be live to cover Webull's earnings. It might give a little bit of an indication of how the brokerages are doing in general. I expect them to have a good earnings. I don't know if it's enough to really pump the name as much as people think, but they will have earnings today. S&P 683. 683 for Webull. Galaxy, is that moving today? Galaxy is also up 11%, dude. Seeing a decent chunk of these names catch a bid. Also, let me know if anyone's in Anduril privately. I know a couple people are. Looks like they're raising at $60 billion.
Broke the news, and he joins us now. So a $4 billion round, Ed. I thought $8 billion was what the company was going to raise.
Yeah, so the status of it is that it is Thrive Capital and Andreessen Horowitz leading a $4 billion raise, the post-money valuation around $60 billion. We had reported last month that they were in talks with various investors to raise up to $8 billion. But at the end of the day, Anduril is such a sought-after investment in the private markets. It's very much in the kind of bucket of pre-IPO names. It is at the sort of forefront of the wave of Silicon Valley and other national defense tech startups that are getting tangible wins in contracts with the military apparatus of this nation and with Western allies. And, at the time we did the original reporting on the round, a big focus for Anduril was to bring in some crossover investors, right? The type of investor that when you are looking further afield to an IPO would sit on the cap table. But Thrive, very sizable venture firm, just raised a $10 billion fund. Andreessen Horowitz with its American Dynamism team, very much at the forefront of the sort of intersection of technology and national security and national interest priorities. And they have a lot of ambitious projects throughout this nation.
I mean, they're probably going to continue catching a bid when it comes to Anduril because, if this thing with Iran continues to, get dicier. They're probably going to get a bunch of purchase orders. But this would be the right time for them to raise. I mean, if the American military is remilitarizing at a pretty high level, Robinhood, by the way, above 83, almost a 10% day for Hoodie, then yeah, I mean, their valuation probably will go up. The problem with Anduril, once again, is that I doubt they're making money, and their margins are probably horrible because they still produce hardware at the end of the day. They use software, which makes them special, but they don't sell software. And so I think they're just going to always be an expensive stock and get a big premium, but they're probably looking at a 2027 IPO for these guys. And that IPO is probably $100 billion. So, or maybe it's earlier. Maybe if Anthropic and SpaceX go public and Anduril sees the window, but these valuations of the private markets definitely are getting a big boost. Wix right there, that's up 11%. Micron's up 4%. SanDisk is up 4%. AMD is up 3%. Robinhood above 83. S&P 683. S&P the highest of the day right here that it's getting right now. And that one kind of signaling that if it can break above 685, we might legit not be seeing any easy rug pull coming in quickly. Palantir 152.14. Even Tesla getting the bid 2% up. Google's still flat. Tesla now back above 400. Google's very close to going green though. Coinbase 13. It's a green day, folks. It is a green day across the board. We're about 45 minutes into this market. Haven't really seen the rug pull. And with more momentum, maybe we don't have to. Iren's up 11. Nebius is up 10. I think, this is also part of the market we've signed up for 4 years into a bull market. Like, obviously, the best thing for all of us would be we just continue with a trend that's up and to the right, and we have the fourth year be easy. But after 3 years of bright green, with a little bit of a hiccup in April during Liberation Day, now it's like really big green days and then flat to red days. And then wait a couple of weeks and really big green days and then flat to red days. So tomorrow's going to be super important, breaking 684 right there on the S&P. If we can follow up this type of a green day, if we end out as green as we are with a second one in a row, or if it continues to match that pattern. Bitcoin 72.2. 72.2. It is definitely the fourth year, not the third year. Remember, 2023, we had 20% returns on the S&P. I know 2023 didn't feel like it was super bullish for the first half of the year, but by the end of the year, we were up 20%. And then 2024, we were up 23%. And then 2025, we were up 18%. So 2026 is indeed the fourth year of this. I mean, what's his name? ChatGPT came out in November 22. Nvidia put up the 8 billion revenue earnings in May of 2023 when the street thought they would do 2 billion. They beat expectations by 3x. And that's when the street was like, oh, this ChatGPT thing is kind of serious. But the S&P really didn't make the move in 2023 until September, because we had a ugly drawdown in July. So I would say 2023, 24, 25, those were 3 back-to-back-to-back bull years. And we're trying to go for the fourth one. Yeah, EOSC had an insider buying yesterday as well. That was true. I think he bought about 60,000 shares. The story with Coinbase is simply Bitcoin. Is Circle getting some love today? Circle also up another 4% today. So Circle, Coin, and Hood all getting that momentum. What happens on the fifth year? I don't want to know. Dude, I was reading this article today. This article came out in 2024. And it was this guy who used to work at OpenAI. He left OpenAI, but he wrote this really big article after he left. And you read through some of the stuff that these people in the industry, which they're not investors, but they are actually in the industry, and if they're able to sort of comprehend what the investment cycle could look like. And basically, the implication of the article was Nvidia could go to $20 trillion. Like, this AI build out is still so unbelievably underestimated. And we're just beginning to see the revenue from an Anthropic, a Cursor, and OpenAI start to scale. We haven't even really seen that revenue scale for the AI products themselves and the hyperscalers. We're seeing their cloud computing revenue go up, but Google's not even fully monetizing Gemini yet. We have a lot more work to go to see this AI revenue. I think Meta has been the best one in terms of advertising. And so, does Nvidia get to 20 trillion? I don't know. But the point is, maybe this does last 5, 7, 8 years of a bull market because of how much build out there is. If we can keep rates down and the labor market stays sustained. Now, there's plenty of bear cases to poke holes inside of that thesis, but there could be an argument. This has a chance to continue. The Q's right there. That's up 1.2% as well. Let's listen to one of our senators, John Fetterman. He is one of the only Democrats who is publicly supporting this war, and see what he's saying. The Senate is going to be voting on a war powers bill, I believe, later today.
You here?
Well, I can't really speak for the rest of my colleagues in the Senate because I believe I'll be the only Democrat that's going to vote against it. So I think there's been like an emerging kind of dynamic. I think it's, to be objectively fair, that I think the things that happened so far has been very, very positive and a strong development overall. Every single senator says we should never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb. And that's happening right now. Things that makes it virtually impossible to do that. And I also say that many senators are saying, I'm not going to weep that the Ayatollah has been erased. Well, why can't you just say it's been a good thing that he's been killed? And now if a lot of good things are happening that we all wanted, why can't we all just agree that overall this has been a positive development? And now it's like you're not part of the Democratic Party right now to just say, hey, I support the things that happened so far.
I guess they just can't give Trump any sort of win or authority. I mean, Senator Schumer,
Exactly. That's what's driving it. It's just like, why can't you just admit, like, a lot of really good positive things happen. And now, like, also it's absolutely, I'm proud to stand and support Israel. Now, if so many things that you've claimed that you want, that we acquire a nuclear bomb and that this regime is evil and incredibly destructive, both of them have been effectively ended right now. Why can't you say, well, maybe this was a good thing now? Because I know why. Because the base demands that you can't agree with Trump on anything.
Have you been reprimanded?
No, they know that would be a waste of time if they did, because, hey, I'm proud to be on the side for Israel, and I'm going to be on the side of the country. And now, why say things to never acquire a nuclear bomb and this regime is evil?
All right, that's John Fetterman's approach to kind of how he's thinking of it. He's, again, one of the only Democrats that is this explicitly taking the appeal to support this war. I really wonder what the war power vote will come out to be. I would imagine he might be the only Democrat siding with the Republicans in the Senate. But, you do have a lot of Democrats saying that this is going to turn into something that is going to be way worse than expected as they are going against the administration. The Q's kind of really breaking out right now, 1.32%. Look at those green candles, 609.60. I think that's led by, that's being led by Nvidia and Amazon. Nvidia almost 183. Amazon 216, baby. This thing was at 203 on Monday. 203 on Monday. Getting some nice love. Palantir, there she is, 153. 153. It took a minute, but she's back. At least above 153. Let's check 154 resistance. VIX is down 12%. That is very encouraging, guys. I mean, we're an hour into the market open. VIX down 12%. For it to spike up and to ruin this momentum today, I feel like you need a really big piece of news if it's naturally down 12% by itself. 154 resistance is 4,000 shares. Not too much. Not too much. Let's see. We got 6 minutes until the 10:30 dump. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Wow, app loving 474. Yeah, we are setting up the foundations to be back. I'm not going to say we are back, because if I say that, we might not be back, but we are setting up the foundations to be back. And hopefully we actually get a chance to go back. But again, we need days of this, dude. We don't need hours of this. We need days of this to actually feel like we have some momentum. App 11 right there, 474 on that screen. What is your take on Amazon? My take is bullish. It's a very simple thesis. AWS is accelerating again. Robotics will increase operating margins. That'll take a couple years, but that is part of the overall thesis. And then third is compute continues to be on the side of demand, not supply, meaning the AWS CEO said we would be growing faster than what we're growing at right now in their highest operating margin business if we had more compute. So the reason the street sold it off is because they're spending $200 billion on CapEx, but they're growing because they're spending that money. And so that's not a reason, in my opinion, to sell it off. Now, it's a reason to not necessarily take it to 300 like the Super Bulls want it to go to, because free cash flow is negative, but it's not a reason for this thing to go back to 190. It's still trading at its lowest, even after the 4% pump today, at its lowest EV to EBITDA multiple in history. So, I mean, I just don't think it's that scary to be long Amazon. But could it get a whipsaw back down to 200 because of some headline? Yeah, of course, that could easily happen. It's just nice to see the street give it a little bit of love. And then not to mention they own Anthropic, 20% of that, right? So that's the other cherry on top for Amazon. Wow, 217 Amazon. Palantir going for 154. Nvidia breaking through 183. Breaking through 183. That is pretty freaking incredible. Could bad results on Broadcom dump the AI sector? Yes, that could happen. But if Nvidia is putting up the types of results they are, Broadcom getting a pump right here at 3%, I really doubt Broadcom's going to crap the bed. On the call, they might signal that things aren't necessarily advancing with OpenAI super fast, which the street might not like. But again, the street didn't like that when the stock was at 420. The stock's at 320 now. So even if they have some bad news, I don't know if that takes a dump from here. If we see Broadcom around that 280, 290 range today, something had to go wrong, like really wrong. I don't know if we easily see that. Remember, Nvidia pumped into the print. Like Nvidia was, again, not pushing all-time highs, but like 2% away from all-time highs. Broadcom is 30% down from all-time highs. So I just feel like the dynamics going through this earnings are a bit different. Google goes green, 304. Nvidia 183 at 11,477. Amazon pushing 217. Palantir did break 154. We did break 154 for a second. S&P 686. Okay, now she's moving. Now she's moving. Non-farm payrolls on Friday. Are they setting us up for a drop? Well, the ADP payrolls were good today. And usually when private payrolls are decent, non-farm tends to be okay. It doesn't tend to blow anyone's socks off, but it tends to be all right. So absolutely, if we get an ugly NFP number, we could see a reversal. But at least with the data we saw today, which could be part of the reason we're pumping, maybe that doesn't have to happen. Wow, South Korea turned green. Look at that. EWI up 1.5%. I mean, a lot of people are waiting to get exposure to South Korea. They just didn't want to buy it up 50%. Down 20%, I think you'll have some bulls say, all right, it's time for me to step in. If you're going to give me a 20% haircut on something that I believe is still undervalued in terms of the forward PE on memory names, then you could definitely see some people coming into it. Light's still taking a hit. You would think this one gets a bit of recovery, but it's not. 682. Ondas, that's up 4%. Intuit, that's up 0.5%. Mercado Libre, that's up 4%. Hood is up almost 10%. Where do I find a link for the meetup? Let me put the link in the chat. We are doing LA, March 28th. And I hope to see a lot of you guys there. Jason yesterday said he'll be there, so it's going to be fun for everyone to see Jason in person. Steve will be there. Should be a good time. SoFi up at 19. Amazon 217. Iran 12%. Wow. We're seeing some big moves. I can't make it on Friday. Any chance it'll be recorded? Yes, the market open will be recorded. You'll be able to see it whenever you want, but we'll be live. We won't be live tomorrow. Or sorry, tonight on the market close, but we'll be live on Friday. Robinhood pushing for 84 right here. Full 10% day. It's been a while since we had a 10% day, but that one's moving. Wow, Nvidia 184, Palantir 154.30. Okay, this one is turning into a big move today. A big move. Centrus Energy, that's up 3%. LEU, how about Oklo? Oklo's up 2.5%. SMR is up 4%. Amit, look at Zoom. Their Anthropic stake should be helping them. Zoom is up 5% today because Anthropic probably just got $100 billion added to their valuation last night. The VIX has got to be absolutely collapsing right here. VIX was down 12. VIX is now down about 14. Did we hit 73 on BTC? Wow. That is a $5,190 candle from this morning, folks. 67 to 73. I mean, can't be that upset about that, right? Can't be that upset. 10:30, no dump. Well, it's 10:31. Let's see. Let's give it a couple minutes. With the VIX this low, could there be a rug pull? Yeah, but I don't know, dude. Again, there would need to be news for this thing to collapse. I don't see it. And we've also had a lot of bad news the past 72 hours. And the amazing thing about the market is it's a machine that can price in things before they happen, or price in things as soon as they happen, and price in expectations of things that inevitably will happen. And gas prices were up over the past month based on the idea that we could have some conflict. We had the conflict. They spiked a little bit. Trump calmed people down. A lot of this stuff potentially could be priced in. Maybe it's not, but maybe that's why the market's moving forward. Gemini's up 18%. This is one of those crypto names. Wow. Gemini Space Station. That's a crypto name, right? Not a space name? I'm pretty sure this is crypto. Oh, there's another. No. This is a space name. I'm thinking of Gemini, the crypto wallet. I'm thinking of something different. But yeah, they went IPO last year. And that one is. Oh, this is the crypto credit company? Oh, so I'm thinking of the right one. Okay, cool. Yeah, this one had a not good IPO. The stock is down a lot from the IPO, but year to date, it's still down 25%. But the fact that that's getting a move today is also pretty damn incredible. I know this one because my dad applied for the IPO on this last year. I think he got like 10 shares and he sold it. But I looked at his account. I was like, why did you apply for the IPO about Gemini? He's like, because they offered it. I'm like, Dad, like, do you even know what they do? He's like, no, but they offered me the IPO. I'm like, oh my goodness, dude. But thankfully, so he actually crushed it on Figma. He got that sucker at 30, sold it at 150 in like 5 hours. So he did make some money on that. All right, what else? What else do we have? What else is going on? We talked about Bitcoin. We talked about the Qatar news on natural gas. Again, I really do think this article, whether it's true or not, this was the headline, Iran's secret outreach highlights Trump's challenge, was about the idea of the war potentially coming to an end way sooner than what people think. And that could be why we're getting a move. Ethereum right there, that is up 8% as well. Wix, great day, 14%. I believe Manuel, a retail investor, started talking about this name. And so once again, high level of due diligence that exists in the retail community to democratize information, which is the cool part of even being part of a financial community. I mean, this is real money. I mean, imagine someone who loaded up heavy on Wix, like heavy. It's up $10. You have 1,000 shares. That's $10,000. So it's really nice to see when some of these names play out. And again, it's part of that AI thesis and the smaller cap names. But if those names are growing, then you'll probably see a lot of other names continue to grow. Amit can finally enjoy Starbucks coffee today. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We might be able to afford some Starbucks after today. What about retail on BMNR? Okay, retail doesn't get everything right, doesn't get everything right. But, the biggest names, Nvidia, Palantir, Rocket Lab, SoFi, AppLovin. I mean, a lot of these, and Micron, SanDisk, these were all retail theses that were put out over the past 3 years. Obviously, Tesla's like the OG retail name. But, a lot of these names that have really made the move, you had individual people that campaign for those names. Private credit still making a move. PayPal, look at that. PayPal 47. Trying to get some love as well. Getting some momentum. SoFi did partner with MasterCard. Yup, that happened. We talked about that yesterday, which I think should be bullish. Teal is not in BMNR. I mean, he had it for a bit, but then he sold it. He's not in ETHZilla anymore. I mean, he's pretty much sold everything outside of his founder's fund holdings. He also sold 2 million shares of Palantir. He still has 100 million shares of Palantir. But yeah, Teal is not that exposed to the public markets at all. He sold all his Nvidia, sold all of his Tesla. I think he had Apple, 60,000 shares. He sold all of those, at least like his hedge fund did. Netflix, very close to 100. But yeah, you've seen a lot of the big guys deleverage, but you've also seen a lot of the big guys lever up. I mean, David Tepperman and Ackman bought Meta, 2 billion of it at 625. Google, Microsoft, they were some of the top buys in Q3 or Q4. So it's not necessarily slowing down. Mike Johnson, let's go to him and see if he has any updates on the war.
That's the people of this great country. And so I trust the American people. I trust that they will evaluate all these things and they will understand that this administration did the right thing. I think they'll reward it politically. But if people get a bad taste in their mouth for what happened back here in the first part of the year in Iran, they just do. But we know, and history will record, we did the right thing. I think passage of a war powers resolution right now would be a terrible, dangerous idea for all the reasons I've just explained. It would empower our enemies. It would kneecap our own forces. And it would take the ability of the U.S. military and the commander-in-chief away from completing this critical mission to keep everybody safe. Iran has attacked 3 of our U.S. embassies in the last couple of days. Okay, those are sovereign territories of the U.S. They have declared war on us. I don't believe in the semantics. We've talked about the language this morning. We're not at war right now. We're 4 days in to a very specific, clear mission, an Operation Epic Fury, which has 2 components, as you know, that we have articulated over and over. The president has, the Commander of Joint Chiefs, everybody has explained. 2 points. We had to take care of these ballistic missiles that they were producing at such a rapid pace that our regional allies could not keep up with. We had to ensure that they can't fire all those barrage of missiles at our people, our troops, our assets, our citizens in the region and our installations. We're taking that out. We had to. It's a defensive operation. And secondly, we had to take their Navy down. That's effectively what, in layman's terms, that's what's happening right now. That will be done quickly. As they explained this morning, we're, I think, hours away probably from having full operational control over the skies over Iran, which means that this mission can be completed quickly. We expect that it will be. And then we will hope and pray that the Iranian people take this moment of opportunity, rise up, take their country back, and that freedom can flourish there for the first time in generations. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much. Some of your members, as you know, Congressman Davidson included, oppose this Iran operation, which the president himself has called a war. Are you confident that you have the votes to defeat the war powers resolution tomorrow?
Yes, and I had a discussion with Congressman Davidson this morning. He's a dear friend and brother of mine, and we, iron sharpens iron. We disagree on issues, and we have those discussions. He and I have done this a lot. He said this morning in front of all their House Republicans, he's not yet sure how he's going to vote on the war powers resolution. I believe we have the votes to put this down, and I certainly pray that's true. Because for what all the reasons I said, it would put the country in serious harm, and it would certainly jeopardize the lives of our troops and all those who were involved in making these great sacrifices to defend us. We have to put this down. Monica.
You said on Monday, talking about the start of this war, you said that Israel was determined to act in their own defense here, with or without American support. You also said that Israel fired upon Iran, immediately retaliated against us, personnel and assets. But the president said yesterday that it was the United States that might have forced Israel's hand. So why are you and the president not on the same page?
We're on the same page. I'm not at liberty to say publicly much of the classified information that I get in all these briefings, and that's always the delicate part of this, because if we say too much, then then it reveals methods and sources, and it eliminates the ability of our extraordinary military and intelligence community to do what they do. The president has explained his analysis and his thought. Obviously, Israel is a close ally. They're in close communication. But everything I've said and everything he said is all true. They're not inconsistent in any way. Israel saw Iran as an existential threat. We should have seen them as well, but they were they were literally a neighbor. So if Iran said publicly, they all told us why. Okay, if they had the ability, they would wipe Israel off the face of the earth. That is why they were trying to enrich uranium. And even though we took out the nuclear facilities several months ago, they were still working on their nuclear ambition, even through the negotiations, as I said. And they were producing missiles at such a rapid pace that they were building up an arsenal that would have done untold damage to Israel and other neighbors there, right there.
So once again, Mike Johnson making the argument, very similar tone from every administration official, that this was about not making sure Iran gets that nuclear weapon and then, the implications of them having the nuke. That is the narrative that they've been going with. And I haven't seen initial polling data outside of what I talked about a couple of days ago on Monday around if the American people are buying that justification. I think we're going to get a lot more polling data next week. But I think the administration will be looking very closely to see, are people believing that that was the right reason to actually go on the offensive. Palantir right there, 152, Nvidia 182. You're seeing some red candles from the absolute highs of the day, which is normal because we were pushing some really big levels. Robinhood right there, 83, 85, now down to 82. But I think all of us would be happy if the market was able to keep these gains. Grab going green on the day. C Limited still red. Coherent, that's up a little bit. Apple just went green, 264. Broadcom, Kyle, thanks for the super chat. Do you know anyone else who's streaming Broadcom since you're abandoning us? I actually don't. You guys should force Tanner to stream it. Or Jose. Jose should be streaming this one. I don't think he is, but he should. No, I don't know who else will be streaming this one. Again, I really, really do not want to miss the close today. Like, it's just a stupid reason I'm missing it too. I have to, like, the traffic in New York to get to the JFK airport, which is where the event is just, it's so ridiculous. And if I left at like even 4:30, I'd be stuck. So I kind of have to leave an hour earlier. Like, I really don't want to miss it, but I think I kind of have to. But we'll talk about it. We will talk about it on Friday. We'll see what it looks like. ASTS right there, pushing 104. That is also green. Go live from the Uber. I've never done that. It would be kind of fun. I feel like I could do it on my phone, but then we go through a tunnel and then the service goes out. It's just a mess. Let's try to do it. Can you live stream the event? They're going to do it themselves, so it'll be on their YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see Robinhood's event. Nvidia right there, 182.47. Again, I'm not taking my Tesla there because I don't know where the hell I'm going to park it. So that's the one tough part about going to the city. It's like you kind of have to be ready to pay a nasty Uber price, but it is what it is. I ran right there. That's up 11. Nebius, that is up 8%. I'm on Long Island and I know that you need to leave right now. Dude, literally. That's what I'm saying. The traffic to JFK is stupid. It is. I went there once and I think I was there for like almost 3 hours in traffic. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm going to miss the entire event if I even think of leaving at 4 o'clock. CoreWeave up 7%. So yeah, we're going to have to leave early. Broadcom up 2. I mean, we're holding on to the green, folks. We are holding on. You're not really seeing it get hit. You need an eVTOL. Yes, I do. Archer, that's up 3%. Keep monitoring the situation. I saw a video last night. I need this as my approach to monitoring the situation. Like, if I had this, which I'm about to show you, I would be the happiest person ever. Look at this. Look at that screen setup. Look at that. Look at that guy. Talk about monitoring the situation. Look at this guy. Like, honestly, I need this, dude. I need this. I need 15 different screens. This is like, it's like you have all these screens to make like $10 of profit for the year, but this is what I need to keep monitoring the situation. And hopefully we can get that. BM&R almost up 10. Almost up 10. Dude, is anyone working today? For all my work from home people, is anyone actually working? Or are you just, this is one of those days where you're like probably legit staring at the screen. This is finally a day of solace, even though the S&P is up only 0.5%, right? It's not like the S&P is breaking out or anything, but some of these growth stocks finally are getting a bid. Everyone saying yes is lying. Everyone saying yes right here is lying. We are all staring at the screen. up 2% year to date with 15 monitors. Yeah, exactly. It's only 7:45. I forgot my West Coast people. Dude, so I'm going to the West Coast twice. I'm going in 2 weeks for GTC. And then I'm going again for the LA meetup. So we're going to have some very early market opens. 5:45 for me. But we will keep the show going. But we are going back to California. Going back. I'm multitasking. This is my second job. Oh my gosh. Are you going to be at the Hood event? Yes. I'm grabbing 1,000 shares of RVI for fun. Yeah, I mean, look, if the market turns bullish, that Robinhood Ventures Fund, which I think is IPOing like Friday, it could pump, dude. It could pump. If Databricks and Stripe and all these companies are seen as way more valuable, then yeah, it's going to go up, which is great for Hood's business. Again, I just personally don't love the valuation, so I'm not buying it. But it's definitely another stream of revenue for Robinhood too. You do well on. June says, I monitor you daily. It's what we got to do. We got to monitor our portfolios. Turns into a second job. You're on my 11th monitor that I'm working on. Oh my gosh. When are we doing the Chicago meetup? Probably in May. I will have the link for that probably in a week or two. I will also have the Singapore link. Right now, we're just trying to get LA out of the way and get the logistics of that to happen. But we'll get Chicago and Singapore on the board. I do really want to have multiple screens. Like I have 4 screens right here, 2 iPads and then 2 laptops, or 1 desktop, 1 laptop. But it just feels cooler to have more screens. Rocket Lab, 4% up. That screen as well. Come to San Fran. We did a meetup in San Fran last February. That's why we're doing LA this time. But I mean, I'm going to be close to San Francisco during GTC. So if anyone's there, it'll be cool to see people. But the actual meetup itself will be in LA. I haven't actually been to LA in a while. I think I haven't been to LA since I stopped there at the airport for a little bit, but I haven't really been there, I think, in almost 6 years. It's been a minute. So I'm excited to go back. SoFi still breaking above 19. Where's the heat map? The heat map's got to be blistering green today. Yeah, look at that. Complete opposite of yesterday. Look at that. Greeny green across the board. Dude, isn't life so much better when stocks go up? Like literally everything about life gets so much better when our portfolios go. It's kind of fascinating. Like who would have thought? You make more money, everything gets better. Like when the portfolio's down, it's just like, you know, you feel like shit. No matter how much people say, oh, I want to buy the dip. It's like, yeah, but you still feel like shit. But when it's up, you just feel like, wow, I'm doing something with my life. Like, I don't even have to do anything in these. The money's going up. Like, net worth's expanding. Jensen's out there working hard. I'm sitting back and I'm cheering him on. That's it. It really does make people feel better. But that's just on paper, right? Yeah, but even the paper gains, like, I just think psychologically, for at least for us that are like obsessed with looking at our portfolios, I feel like it does something to us to see it go up. I feel like there's no denying that. See, if you have a heavy position in Amazon, it's up $7 today. Let's say you've been buying Amazon for the past, 5 years. 7 times the amount of shares you have. That's a big deal. It feels just better throughout the day. The wealth effect, essentially, that's what it is. And then, we go down 5% the next day, and you feel the volatility of it, which is, I'm sympathetic to the being desensitized to the moves up or down, because that's also very fair. But after all the shit we've been dealing with for the past 2 weeks, to finally see some of these names break out does feel nice. Lemonade up 5%, Rocket Lab up 3% as well. My cat feels better today. Yeah, I would imagine, the pets feel better as well. Dude, I've been getting all these dog videos on Instagram and TikTok. Bitcoin 73, there she is. Just touched 73.1. Now she's back to 73, but that is easily breaking above that 72.5 level. I need a dog. I just can't take care of a dog, but I need one. Like these dog videos, I want a dog, but I know I can't take care of it. I'd love to have one. Seeing green is even better than instant coffee. Exactly. It is much better than coffee. You can have my dog. Luna says, can't start my day without your stream. Luna, I appreciate you. Thank you. It was awesome seeing you at the New York meetup. Thank you for being here. I bet you're never home. Yeah, that's the thing, dude. Like in March, we're going to be gone every single week, including this week. So I'm like, how the hell am I going to take care of this dog? But it would be nice to have one. Broadcom right there, 320. That's up to, I'm trying to see if we have any other major pieces of news breaking out right now. It kind of feels a little fishy, right? It feels like, oh, we're just up. There's nothing happening. There's no crazy headlines. I don't see any. OpenAI's next model to have extreme reasoning. That's one headline. I'm going to share the Apple video, but I'm going to take the audio off because they'll probably copyright me if I share their video.
Is MacBook.
So there's the video of the new Neo. I don't see any geopolitical stuff. I don't see any Iran stuff. Again, the major New York Times article this morning signaling negotiations might happen soon. I think that was the reason we pumped green. We got this Apple stuff. Bitcoin obviously moving. Where's gold and silver? I didn't even check gold and silver today. They're flat. I mean, they're up a little bit, but they're basically flat. So that's also good. It probably would be hard for Bitcoin to make this big of a move if gold and silver were super green. But there's a new laptop. Yeah, I don't see any crazy headlines. This video is so much extra, bro. This video is so extra. Like, just tell us you put a new chip in it. It looks like the same MacBook. Nothing looks different. They're like recreating the MacBook in front of us like we don't know what a Mac looks like. Oh, but this one has a touchscreen though, right? I think that's the difference. Does it have a touchscreen? Maybe this one doesn't. Yeah, okay. There's nothing that. Why are they building the laptop in the ad? Like none of us have seen what a MacBook looks like. When is the Apple event? That's at like 1 p.m., right? Yeah, I would want to stream that. But even if I wanted to stream it, I can't because freaking Apple copyrights literally every stream of their stuff. Broadcom 320, Apple 263. Yeah, that's the budget one. I believe that's $599. So it is a smaller and cheaper laptop for them. That ad probably cost them $5 million. Dude, these ad agencies, these creative agencies make so much money. Because when you get a client like Apple or like Meta or like Hershey's, I mean, their marketing budgets are just stupid. Like they'd be willing to pay anything to build something that gets people's attention. So yeah, the best agencies, they make a killing off these enterprise clients. Here's something also that I thought was interesting. So this has been going viral if people didn't see it. But, this is the McDonald's CEO introducing their new burger. And notice how he kind of doesn't take a bite out of it.
how to attack it. Got so much to it. Oh, there's also some crispy onions on here as well. I see those kind of coming out. All right, the moment of truth. That is so good. That's a big bite for a big arch.
Okay, so that was like the fakest bite ever. So Burger King, given we're speaking of marketing, came out, and the Burger King CEO is like, we're going to use this as an opportunity to kind of shit on McDonald's, and look at how he takes a bite of their burger.
Not bad, right?
Only one thing missing, a napkin.
Genius marketing. I mean, the fact that he had some of the sauce on his lip lets you know he actually took a big bite, whereas the McDonald's CEO like barely touched it. I thought that was genius from Burger King. They put out that video so quick after the McDonald's thing went viral. They put out that video because they were just like, hey, the CEO barely wants to touch his own food, and we're going to do something different. Now, I think both CEOs wouldn't let their kids actually eat McDonald's or Burger King, to be honest. But at least they give the perception of making you think that they love their food. And I thought it was a good marketing stunt from Burger King. Where is McDonald's? It was up. It's actually up on the year. McDonald's is outperforming Nvidia on the year, folks. McDonald's down on the day. Year to date, it is up 9%. Nvidia year to date is down 3%. It is outperforming by over a factor of 10x. Amcor, that's up 1.5. Ethereum still pushing. Bitcoin, high of day, 73,240. 73,240. Does anyone actually eat the Whopper, or what's the McDonald's one called? It's a Big Mac? I don't think I've had those things in years. I like the snack wraps from McDonald's. I think those are like more reasonable. From Burger King, honestly, I haven't been to Burger King in a while, but I feel like it's just like chicken nuggets that I would get. But the actual burgers themselves, when I was younger, I used to like them, but I kind of, first of all, there's too much sauce. There's way too much sauce. Like, and if you tell them don't put the sauce, they always put the sauce. So like that messes up everything. But I also think there's too much going on in those burgers. Way too much. 73.4 on Bitcoin. I do like the Shake Shack burgers. The Shake Shack burgers are incredible. Those are amazing. But the McDonald's, Burger King ones are just not as good to me. Amazon still pushing. App loving 6%. Crypto's really pumping. I do once every 3 months. Most of you guys saying no. Uzi says yes with extra mayo. You guys are ridiculous, bro. Ridiculous. Nvidia 183. Look at all of us theorizing about eating out again. We get one green day. We're like, oh yeah, maybe I could have some Shake Shack for lunch. Will you be streaming Broadcom today? I will not, unfortunately. I really want to. There's just no way I can stream that and be at the event on time today. I bet you like Five Guys. I do. Pause, but I do. It's a great sandwich. By the way, I'm going to be with Stock Talk today at 12 p.m. or not 12 p.m., 1 p.m. Eastern. We are doing another Equity Edge episode. I don't have this name yet. It's something I'm still looking at, but it's one of the names that he likes. So tune into that episode and we'll talk about it. The ticker is, if I'm not wrong, MITK. Yeah, MITK. So this will be the ticker we'll be talking about today. It's not really a semiconductor name. It's more digital identity, identification, kind of has an AI angle to it, but it is a small cap, 679 million. Again, I do not own this name, but I think he took like a 2% position a week ago. And so that's what today's Equity Edge at 1 p.m. on Twitter will be about. Synaptics, this is another one we talked about a couple weeks ago. They had a decent earnings. The stock has taken a bit of a hit, 90 to 78. But this is up 2% on the day. AMD, that's up 4%. That is up 4%. I'm finally going to reward myself with a big fat pizza today. You know, we got to take the wins as we get them. And today might be a day to get a little reward for everybody. I think that's fair. Rob, thanks for the super chat. Do you think this is the pound to recovery, or is this just a pump from the war that will drop again once the war ends? It's a good question. If Trump comes out tomorrow and says we're done, the special military operation is over, I don't think that necessarily means Palantir dumps, just because now high beta growth is in action, and once Palantir gets that momentum, it kind of holds on to it unless we have a market drawdown. So if the market dumps, yes, but I don't think this pump is exclusive to Iran. So yeah, no, I think the answer is no. But if the broader and also if Trump comes out and says the war is over, the market's probably going to pump even higher. So these levels are going to be taken out easily if that's the case. It's just holding Palantir through this turbulence for the past 5 years has been proven to work out, given they continue to have a role and the market perceives them as having a role. They got a price upgrade today as well to 230. UBS, I think, did 180 last week. And so, the market perceives them as a winner in this space as well. Will says, are you still in BMNR? Yes, still in BMNR. Have not added to BMNR basically in the past 4 months off the idea that we might still be stuck in a crypto winter. And until we get it, I'm happy to add it at a higher level, including Bitcoin, Coinbase, all this stuff. Like all those crypto names, I'm happy to add at a higher level if I get confirmation that crypto winter is done. One good day of Bitcoin being up 8%, which is amazing, almost a $6,000 candle, is not confirmation, not by any sense of the imagination. So I think we need some weeks, some real weeks of seeing that this selling pressure is done on crypto. Otherwise, you're just buying into strength. And then when crypto dumps the next day or the next week or the next month, the entry price could have been even better. But it is nice to see some of this excitement. Ethereum right there, 2,100. Dragsy, thanks for the super chat. Do you think this is the beginning of the comeback for Bitcoin? Honestly, I don't know why Bitcoin's up today. I mean, again, maybe the market's taking seriously the Iran war is going to end soon and they go super risk on, but there's no liquidity headline. There's no Kevin Warsh headline. Yeah, gold and silver are flat, but I don't think there's like some massive rotation headline. 8% is a hell of a move, and I really can't explain it outside of maybe the market thinking we are going to be ending soon. The Clarity Act is not happening for another 2 months. So I don't think the Clarity Act is your catalyst. I mean, again, you did have Trump. Oh, I did forget to mention, Trump did tweet yesterday after hours that the big banks are holding back the Genius Act and we need to do something about it. He basically said, he didn't call out Jamie Dimon, but he's basically saying Jamie Dimon's, not allowing America to thrive when it comes to crypto. Politico reported that Trump met with Brian Armstrong yesterday in the White House. So I would imagine after Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, kind of talked to him, he then puts out this tweet about how we need to really take crypto seriously, get the Clarity Act passed, Genius Act passed. So maybe this tweet is the catalyst to get the market to think that legislation is coming. Then again, I also don't think legislation is the reason crypto's been down. I think it's more macro. Because I think it's more macro than, there needs to be more of a macro reason why it's pumping, not just legislation. Also, legislation could be a sell the news, which is what happened in October when like the first part of the Clarity Act passed the House of Representatives. Bitcoin was down 3%. So it might not be the resounding factor. However, ETFs are flowing in. So this was yesterday, another solid inflow day for the Bitcoin ETFs. Almost all are now net positive flows year to date. BlackRock, Fidelity, etc. Bitcoin's down 22% on the year, 50% in total, but the ETF volumes are once again recovering since the midpoint of February. So, I mean, now granted, it's kind of a catch-22 because the reason the inflows are up is because Bitcoin's going up. If Bitcoin goes down, the inflows will go down because like the inflows just move with the price action. So it is nice to see more inflows. It would be bad if the price was up and inflows weren't coming in. Then, people would be wondering why aren't the institutional investors allocating exposure to it. But if those inflows continue, that would not be a bad thing. Meta 670, folks. 670 on Meta. Wow. 670 on Meta. That's getting a 3% move right there. Hollis says, I think it pumped from global inflation worries, then pumped from market rebound. That's actually a really good point. If oil is going to go up a lot and inflation is going to go up a lot, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's say that's the perception. well, isn't Bitcoin the hedge against inflation? I know it hasn't acted like that, but maybe people were like, all right, we're going to go into Bitcoin as our hedge against inflation, or at least as the beneficiary of QE and more rate cuts. But then again, if we have high inflation, we're not going to get massive rate cuts. So there could be a macro narrative to spin this 8% move on Bitcoin, but it's not as clear as one would think. Dude, why are we still doing the 6-7 thing in the chat, guy? Like, can we leave that in 2025? Like, are we actually still doing that? Like, it was cute for a little bit in 2025, but we're all adults here. Like, are we actually spamming 6-7 every time you hear a 6 and a 7 together? And I know me saying this means that everyone's going to keep spamming it, but like, aren't we done with it? Like, don't we have plenty of memes to worry about besides 6-7? Like, you don't even see people in the media. Like, you had freaking CNBC hosts doing the meme. That's when I was like, okay, we are at the top of this meme. So hopefully it's dying out. But I doubt it will. It's going to change to 7-7, yes. It's going to change to 7-7. Amit left currently right now in 2025, so we should do the same with 6-7. I didn't leave currently right now in 2025. I have these phases of my how do you call them? Phases of my, what's the right word? Is idiom the right word I'm thinking of? Yes, idiom. Idiom is the word I'm thinking of. I was thinking of riff, but I think idiom is the right word. I'm surprised I even know that word. A group of words established by usage as having meaning not deducible from those of the individual words. I don't even know if that's the right word, but the point is I have these phases of different phrases that I say. And currently right now just hasn't popped up in a while. It's iconic, but it just hasn't. And I'm not going to force it. It has to naturally happen. So in 2025, it was flowing. It hasn't flowed as easily this year. But that's okay, because then we get new memes as well. Let me pull this up real quick. Do we have this right now? Do we have one of the, yeah, okay, let's bring it. So we talked about Deutsche Bank in the morning. They have one of their analysts up, but let's get an update real quick on what Hexet said, and then we'll see their call for the market as well.
War in the early 2000s. Hegseth also said that the United States and Israel will have complete control of the skies in Iran in under a week.
Only the United States of America could lead this, only us. But when you add the Israeli Defense Forces, a devastatingly capable force, the combination is sheer destruction for our radical Islamist Iranian adversaries. They are toast, and they know it.
Meanwhile, on CNBC, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the United States will use the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, known as DFC, to backstop the private insurance market for vessels in and out of the Persian Gulf.
We began yesterday with the announcement that DFC will provide the insurance for both the crude carriers and the cargo ships operating in and around the Gulf over the weekend. Lloyd's of London nullified the insurance, so U.S. government is going to step in, and when it is appropriate and should it be needed, the U.S. Navy will provide safe passage through the straits for the oil tankers.
Bessent also said that the global crude oil market is well supplied, and he promised a series of announcements from the administration designed to keep that supply flowing smoothly. Guys, back over to you.
What do we expect from the White House, Eamon, on this vote in the Senate? They're voting on whether to give him the power, I guess, to continue to pursue the war.
Yeah.
What's the expectation, and how's the White House handling it?
Well, we'll see what happens up on Capitol Hill. The White House clearly doesn't believe that they need congressional approval to conduct this war. What Secretary Rubio has said up on Capitol Hill throughout the week is that they notified Congress, they notified the so-called Gang of Eight top leadership up on Capitol Hill, and they did everything they were required to do under the law. The president is taking a very maximalist position here on U.S. authority and presidential authority. Yesterday.
And again, the big thing that we talked about this morning, we'll bring up that Deutsche analyst in a second, is that they are highly incentivized to make sure oil prices don't go down to continue to bring credibility to this affordability narrative. But the way in which they're going to do that is making sure that they backstop the financing, but also make sure that American domestic production continues to be at all-time highs, which it is right now. If you are to see more facilities get bombed, which 2 of them got hit in Saudi Arabia yesterday and 1 of them in Qatar, then with all the amount of domestic production that we do, it's not going to be that easy to just sell it. Part of the reason why China likes buying oil from Venezuela, or they did like buying oil from Venezuela, they still do, but before the Maduro capture, they were buying it at a 75% discount. China is almost 95% of Iran's oil imports. And so now the Iran stuff is not happening as easy for China. For Venezuela, they're paying market price. They were paying a massive discount below market price before the capture. And I don't think China's going to want to just give all that money to the United States and buy our oil instead. So there are definitely ramifications for the flow of oil if more facilities are attacked. The best case scenario for the administration, if they want to continue the war, is that oil facilities continue to be okay and the Strait of Hormuz doesn't close down. Pounds right there above 151. But they have to do everything in their power to keep oil prices flat. If not, things are going to get a bit ugly. Why is Celsius getting hit? Not sure. Celsius down 2% right here. Probably shouldn't be getting hit. But you do see some pain. Microsoft is green, 404. That's up 0.2%. We are past the 1030 slam, folks. We have not really given up a lot of gains. S&P was at 686. Now we're at 684. That is not as bad as we've experienced over the past couple of weeks. And so maybe we get to keep some of that momentum. Let's hear from Deutsche Bank, and then we'll keep going from there.
Dichotomy overnight between what did happen in Asia and then what happened in Europe. Is that just a function of where valuations had been in Asia?
I think what we're seeing basically is the S&P 500 range basically continues to maintain. The range began basically back in December. Latest developments, what you're seeing is sort of broad-based, reduction in positioning across asset classes, whether you're talking gold, and so, you have this swapping of the winners and the losers. You've seen the bounce in software, the alt firms for a little while, and the market's basically been long the rest of the world relative to the U.S. I think,
hold on. We got some Democratic leaders. They're talking. Let's see what they got to say about this war.
Several months ago, in June of last year, that Iran's nuclear program had been completely and totally obliterated. That's the president's words. Did he lie to us then, or is he lying now that he's claiming that Iran was acquiring the possibility of being able to threaten us with nuclear weapons? A nuclear program he had claimed was completely and totally obliterated. President has indicated that he's interested in regime change, but we know that regime change wars have never worked out for the American people and have cost thousands of lives.
Okay, so once again, before this war powers vote, this is going to go back and forth. That was Hakeem Jeffries just now. S&P, a little bit more of a red candle, but kind of stabilizing at 685.50 or 684.50. You had Johnson an hour ago try to justify the argument, and now you have top Democratic leaders outside of Fetterman, who's the only one who's kind of taken the Republican side right here, to side with Trump. AMD trying to push 200, 197. I think the polling data will be a bit more conclusive in the coming weeks on how the American people think of it right now, but both sides are making their appeal to this country about what route this is going to go. Zoom right there, that's up 5%. Oklo's up 2%. Hoodie is still holding 8%. South Korea as well, up 1.5% on the day as that continues to go green. Trying to pull up a couple of different macro updates. We're not seeing too many, though, which is actually good. Less macro updates is... Oh, here's one video that I definitely think everyone needs to see. So I know a lot of people have been asking about photonics, and the Coherent CEO was live yesterday talking about the $2 billion investment from Nvidia. And he actually made a really compelling case for why Nvidia made the investment, but also the bottleneck inside of the supply chain for AI, which is kind of fueling a lot of other sectors to start getting more momentum.
Having me on. I appreciate it. Yeah, the way you can think about it is a laser is really ultimately it's photonics, and it's really about light, and it's about using light to transmit data in the data center. And there's a good portion of the data center already today where all of the communication of the data is happening with light. And the reason that light gets used rather than, for instance, an electrical signal is light is the absolute fastest, most power efficient way to transmit data. And so good portion of the data center already runs 100% on photonics optical connections. But as we move forward, building new data centers, as we see a massive ramp in the amount of data flowing through these data centers, more and more of the data center connections will be based on light, on optical photonics.
So in this arrangement, you'll take the funds for R&D purposes, but inside of it, there is a purchase opportunity for Nvidia. Nvidia's done a lot on silicon photonics. They've told me about it for quite a while now. What's new in it for them? What is it that they're able to now do that they couldn't do themselves?
Well, they're relying on us to bring the photonics expertise, right? So Nvidia for us has been a long-term partner, actually over 20 years as a customer and a partner through their Mellanox acquisition. So we've had a long history with Nvidia, and really what we're doing is working together to use photonics to advance the architecture of data centers, to find new innovation within data centers. And the key thing that photonics or optics brings is incredibly power efficient data transmission, because again, there's no more
as opposed to transferring via electrons.
Exactly. So as you increase the data rates, as you increase the amount of data that's being transmitted, you have to, if you're using electrical today, eventually you'll hit a physics limit and you'll be kind of forced to switch to optical. And so we'll see more and more of the connections within the data center move to optical. And that's really where we come in. We're a global expert in photonics and optical communication.
The market is forward looking. They understood the copper to optical vibe for a few months, if not years, and your shares have shown that. Yeah. But what's interesting is Lumentum CEO was speaking at an event yesterday, Michael, and he was talking about even with scaling of their supply, they're still way behind. They're falling further behind where demand is. Is that something similar for you as well?
Well, demand.
And this is what the memory CEOs have been saying as well. All of these different bottlenecks that are popping up, when the street doubts NVIDIA's demand and they put up this type of guidance, and then you look at the suppliers in the supply chain that reaffirm that argument, it's why I think you've seen these 70 to 80% moves in some of these smaller names. But once again, the cyclicality narrative is why their forward PEs are still pretty low.
There's no doubt demand is incredibly strong, and that is both in the near term and in the long term. I mean, the forecasts that we're seeing from our customers, not just NVIDIA, but large hyperscalers, cloud service providers, are just exceptionally strong. And so what we are doing about that is we are rapidly expanding our capacity. I mean, we are building capacity as fast as we can.
What does that look like?
Yeah,
what's the supply chain?
I was going to say, just as one example, Ed, you asked about the lasers. Let's take the lasers.
We all want to talk about lasers.
So if you look at the lasers, we're doubling our capacity this year, right? So we're coming out with twice as much indium phosphide. That's the key material underneath the lasers, but twice as much indium phosphide production. So we are ramping our capacity as fast as possible. Right. But back to, as we see more and more of the data center convert from electrical to optical, you've got kind of two big secular growth trends underneath us. And number one, the data center growth, but number two, this conversion of electrical to optical. And so that just generates an incredible amount of demand. So we're trying to stay ahead of that. We're ramping capacity. This NVIDIA partnership is part of that. That investment that they made into Coherent will help us ramp capacity faster and make sure that we've got the right capacity.
So ramp capacity where, right? We had the co-founders Mesh on the show recently, SpaceX alum who did lasers at SpaceX. And they came to market with a very simple argument. Output of these systems at scale is done in China. There isn't a facility in the United States. There isn't the capacity here. Is that part of your game plan, or you dispute that?
Absolutely. Lasers, some of the key technology that we're developing and ramping is here in the U.S., right? So we have a long history of U.S. manufacturing. We were founded as a U.S. manufacturing company. We've got over 20 manufacturing sites across 13 different states. But one of the key technologies that we're ramping on behalf of NVIDIA and other customers is that laser technology. That's happening in Sherman, Texas, right? And that's a great facility. We've supported customers out of that facility for years, but that's where we're going to be, part of where we're going to be doubling capacity.
What do you need from a raw material perspective? What is it that makes US manufacturing ever more capable? I'm sure you're discussing this with government all the time.
Yeah. So one of the key inputs is it's the indium phosphide substrates themselves. And so we have a very diversified supply chain. We've, just like NVIDIA is securing, capacity rights to our capacity, we're doing the same thing with our suppliers. So we're making sure that we've got all the key input capacity or input supply secured. But look, we believe that these key optical technologies like lasers, we absolutely want to see that manufactured in the U.S. Now we have other sites as well. We're a global company. And so we are ramping at multiple sites, but that's one of our key facilities is Sherman, Texas.
Okay, so I'm not an expert on photonics or optics or the theory behind light within data centers. I would imagine it's all very useful, which is why these companies have achieved the types of revenue growth that they're achieving, why they're getting investments from Nvidia. But one thematic that's been really, not just one thematic, but one investing style in 2026 that has worked 2 months into the year is finding these bottlenecks, finding the smallest companies in those bottlenecks. They don't have to be like $100 million companies, but, a couple $1 billion. We're not looking for, massive 20, 30, $40 billion companies. And then hoping that their earnings growth it creates a re-rating on the stock. And that's exactly what we did with Amcor, right? Talked about this in October. It was $30, one of the only packaging plays for TSM's facility in Arizona. Stock was at $6 billion. Now stock's at $11 billion. It's had a re-rating. And quite frankly, the stock, I think very well could get into that $60, $70 range if the growth keeps up with their price to sales multiple, which right now is 1.6. You give it a 3, you start to see some real upside in the stock. That has happened in the photonic space. That has obviously happened in the memory space. The fear on all of that stuff, that also happened in the server space with SMCI before SMCI collapsed. But for a good 2 years, SMCI was, the best performing stock in the entire market. The fear is if any innovative update happens around how NVIDIA is making chips, how Google TPU is thinking of memory, et cetera, if there's any new ways for how they're thinking of photonics inside of data centers that might not require the amount of memory or the amount of optics or the level of demand that these companies are seeing, then those growth multiples get crushed. Now, all the evidence around a variety of these thematics is that the supply chains are the bottleneck, which means they're booked for years. And if there is some massive level of innovation that NVIDIA comes out with that says we need 1/5 of the memory that we were using, which again is crazy to imagine, but that would not happen for a while because NVIDIA needs the time to even figure out how do they do that. So you do have an argument around, hey, the supply chain bottlenecks are interesting arguments because they're not $4 trillion like NVIDIA. Now you can sleep better at night owning NVIDIA than Micron, I think, to an extent, or owning NVIDIA versus Lumentum. But the alpha you're going to get from some of those names is way bigger. Not to mention, you also have, yes, as someone mentions, a power bottleneck. A lot of these supply chain, a lot of these suppliers within NVIDIA's supply chain that are being perceived as a bottleneck, therefore, they're getting all this demand, their own internal supply chain might have bottlenecks, which might not allow them to supply what they need to supply as easily to the other hyperscaler customers, excluding NVIDIA, given NVIDIA always usually gets first dibs. What's the perfect example of this? CoreWeave. One of the reasons CoreWeave got hit in December is because their earnings weren't the best, simply because they had supply issues and they couldn't get as much demand or as much product out the door. So I think the only hesitation I have with a lot of these names is some of it already priced in, which a lot of these names have run a lot already. Are the growth stories actually cyclical? Again, it's weird to say this because if you believe in this massive AI build out, you would imagine that, yeah, it's cyclical, but the cycle is going to last longer than expected. Same thing for Nvidia. So, maybe that cyclical narrative is not that important. And then third, do they have a meaningful moat that allows them to withstand any level of disruption inside of whatever innovation that AMD or Nvidia or Broadcom end up coming up with? And just like historically, you've seen some of these smaller names that are existing in a larger build out pump and then dump badly. And right now we're in the pump stage. And maybe we don't get an ugly dump stage. But you got to be pretty damn sure when you're buying these names versus buying a Broadcom, Nvidia, or an AMD, because they're just smaller. And they should be more speculative because they're smaller market caps, and they should give you a way better risk to reward because, you're not buying a $4 trillion company, you're buying a $2 billion company. Which is, again, Amcor was $5 billion. And it's massively outperformed Nvidia since then. But also Amcor is not as safe as holding Nvidia because, it's Amcor. It's not the $4 or $5 trillion giant led by Jensen Huang. So I think that's the nuance in terms of allocating to these plays. 685 right here on the S&P. That is green on the day, and that continues to be green. It feels like chasing 100%. I mean, again, some of these names, like forget the memory names, but some of these photonics names like Lumentum, this thing's up 70% this year. So the Nvidia May 2023 quarter that these guys need to have, they already have them. Can't say there's not going to be more of those quarters in the future, but like that re-rating from the street to be like, oh yeah, this thing needs to go up. It's happened on a lot of them. And again, the bulls will say, well, if Nvidia is going to keep going higher and demand's going to keep growing, and after Vera Rubin, you have Feynman, and it's just like it just doesn't stop, then it's like, yeah, these names probably should have a life cycle that's much longer than what people think. But any level of disruption based on three things we talked about, maybe that takes them down. Having said that, I think the photonics thing is real. And, the bigger theme that I like this year is edge compute. And that's why I have OSS. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more around edge compute. But it does feel like the photonics theme is not a small thematic this year. AMD pushing 198. Bitcoin got rejected at 73.5, just below 73. But still up on the day. It's interesting to see this kind of style in American market just because there's so many great big companies to invest in, unlike, say, a Taiwanese market where 80% of the components are supply chain. That's a great point. Like, the funny thing is, because the large caps have been so disappointing this year, I think a lot of American investors or international investors have looked to these like smaller companies in the supply chain to find alpha. Because if Meta is going to be flat for the year, if Nvidia is going to be red for the year, then, people are going to rotate their capital somewhere else. And it is funny because then you're looking for, again, Amcor, right? Like a lot of the news articles to help with the due diligence of that were from Taiwanese media. And you kind of have to go digging to find that stuff. But I also think when the large caps have pumped to the level they pumped, it takes that level of due diligence to find those other names that are part of the data center build out, even if they're not the data center company. Do you know when Hood Cortex is supposed to be released? I don't, but it should be soon. I know a lot of people have gotten it in beta. They announced it in September. So now we're in March. Maybe they make some announcement about it tonight, but yeah, I don't have access to it. I have access to Digest. I would love to have access to my own finance LLM, which is essentially what Robin had built. So hopefully soon we'll be able to see it. All right, is that it? Are we done for the day? Did we get through mostly everything? It's 11:30 right now. We are pretty green. We have not seen a reversal yet. CoreWeave is still up 7. Broadcom's still a bit green. Yeah, liquid cooling, that's another theme I've been seeing. These thematics are very interesting. They have a lot of different players in them, but finding the gems in the themes is, also a challenge. Okla was basically, when it was at $5, a gem in the nuclear theme. And, although it's down from 190, it's still at 65. If you got it anywhere around the $10, $20 range, you're probably still happy. It's just trying to find those bottlenecks are important. I do think the energy stuff continues to be underestimated. I'm not talking about Chevron or Exxon, but I'm talking about the Bloom Energies of the world, the T1s. I mean, I know some of the earnings haven't been the best. EOSC, obviously, the company kind of really missed on guidance, but we do not have enough energy for this AI build out. And there's got to be more and more companies that are innovating and finding ways to be part of the build out. And so I think those names continue to catch a bid and probably will over the coming years. How do we still have an Iran war and the market is pure green? It's a good question. Sometimes you don't question things. Just let it happen. But in all seriousness, I think that New York Times article about Iranian-U.S. negotiations might be why we relax. But then you hear Mike Johnson 10 minutes ago. Mike Johnson's talking about, we are going to dismantle the entire military. We're going to keep fighting. And then you hear Hakeem Jeffries, who's like, we're going to vote to basically condemn the war that has already been pledged on Iran. I mean, you have so many people left or right that are essentially assuming that this is going to last for a long time. So the market pricing in that it's not going to happen, maybe the market knows more. All right, let's end up the day. We got a new Tom Lee video. Let's end this out. We'll spend 2 minutes here, and then we'll be done. And we'll end up the show for today.
Okay, well, let's direct our attention to macro because there's a lot to talk about. But the first is really the idea that markets bottom on bad news, and keep that in mind. We believe, and we've been talking about how we believe March is likely an up month for equities. And over the weekend, the U.S. began combat operations against Iran. So the question, of course, in your mind is, does the Iran war cancel an up March? Our answer is no. We still expect March to be an up month. And as I said, markets bottom on bad news. And that's what we see, that markets tend to sell the buildup and then buy the invasion. These are the last 8 major conflicts from the Vietnam War all the way to last year's Iran conflict. Similarly, we could see this with Bitcoin's price. Bitcoin actually fell on Saturday as combat operations were announced and then began to rally. And in fact, Bitcoin is now over 70,000, which is a multi-month high. I think one of the reasons for this is the market's not expecting this to be a war that engulfs. Similarly, markets are betting on this being a short conflict. In fact, probability of a ceasefire by March 31 is over 50%.
By the way, the prediction markets are kind of losing their mind at this point. There is a prediction market on Polymarket for when the first nuclear bomb will be detonated, which doesn't necessarily mean when someone will attack a country with a nuclear bomb, but there are people trading on when the first nuclear bomb, and just like as a human, that was kind of freaky to see last night. So if we do have a nuclear war, someone on Polymarket will probably make money off of it.
And the VIX is saying this too, because if you look at the light blue, that's the VIX last week, compared to the dark blue, which was VIX on March 2nd, and you can see the VIX spiked. But the VIX futures contracts, 1 month forward all the way through 4 month forward, are barely changed. So the market sees this conflict as a short-term shock. And finally, one of the risks, of course, is the closure of the Sea of Hormuz, where a lot of crude oil and natural gas flow through. And the market does see the odds of it being closed at 61%, which seems high. But keep in mind, oil didn't really react as sharply as you thought because it rose to $75 initially, but it's currently at $72, which is about a 10% gain. So I think March is likely an up month. And there's other reasons. I think the Mag 7 valuation reset has already happened. We can see this on the PEs, that Mag 7 PEs are lower than a lot of consumer staple stocks now. We also know tech is one of the most shorted sectors today. I think the software Armageddon, a lot of that bad news has been priced in as well because software stocks have begun to rebound on a volume spike. And in fact, it's one of the highest volumes ever. And you can see software is right at an important trend line. And we have an FOMC meeting later this month, but I think the inflation data is pretty tame. And the economy remains healthy. The IC manufacturing for February came at 52. Keep in mind, it spent 3 years below 50, and the last 2 months have been solidly above 50, the highest reading since 2022, so 4-year highs. And you've seen this chart before. Basically, the ISM peaking is really more coincident with the market top. but the current readings of ISM are associated with markets in midstream. We've got more data for this week of March 2nd, including ISM services, Fed Beige Book, and jobs report for February and January retail sales. Another thing that we've talked about is the crypto winter is likely ending. That's very good news for the crypto stocks, but also a good risk on market signal. And finally, March probabilities favor not month. And I've covered this before, that the first 5 days of January are positive and January is a positive month. Well, that's 36 times in the last 75 years. And on average, March is a positive month, up 2%. That's 24% annualized, so it's pretty good. And you can string it together with April, May, in total, a pretty good 3-month stretch. So let's talk about granny stock performance now.
3 months, folks. We are heading into a potential 3-month stretch historically where things are better than normal. And hopefully if they do, maybe sell and may go away happens again, but at least we got one little green day to kind of push back against some of the red that we had. Also, I forgot to share this clip. This was CARP. We got some new CARP at the A16Z American Dynamism Summit where, well, CARP was CARP.
Now you get to Silicon Valley. My one message for, and again, I'm without getting in specific people, or because I'm like, if Silicon Valley believes we are going to take away everyone's white collar job, meaning primarily Democratic shaped people whom I grew up with, highly educated people who went to elite schools or went to schools that are almost elite, who vote for one party, and you're going to screw the military. If you don't think that's going to lead to nationalization of our technology, you're retarded. And you might be particularly retarded because you have a 160 IQ. But this is where that path is going. Now you get to Silicon Valley.
There's CARP. We'll wait till the entire event is uploaded, but that was one of the clips that did go viral. Essentially, he's making the argument that Silicon Valley is not going to be able to do what it's doing without people rising up. And basically, to even make it simpler, he's saying we can't take away jobs without people fighting back. And so the argument he's making is if we are going to take away all the jobs and AI is going to be this horrible thing and it's going to be the most doomeristic scenario that anyone can imagine, obviously the country will not be able to function, which is why he's implying things will be nationalized immediately if that were to be the case, which, would be a lot of government intervention. It would be kind of the end of capitalism. And so he's pushing back against that. He's saying there's a more optimistic version of AI that we should be interpreting, which is similar to what Sham has talked about as well. NVIDIA right there, 182.60, S&P at 685. And then you've got Palantir at 152.50 on the day. All right. That is it. That is it. We are done for the day, not the morning, for the day. We'll not be live on the close. Also, I hate to say this, we're not going to be doing the market open tomorrow either. I know that sucks, but tomorrow we have a very important podcast with Steve from 8 to 9 a.m. I could not do it after the market open because it's a very important person and their schedule is a bit more hectic than my schedule. So I'll be gone for the next essentially 12 hours, but we will be back on the close for Thursday. We'll be back on the close for Thursday. What earnings do we have tomorrow? Tomorrow we have Costco. We get back to see Costco earnings, Marvell, and then Gap. Costco will be the big one. So no close today, no open tomorrow. Again, I really wish I could do the close today, but it's just not going to make sense logistically. And then we'll be back for the close on Thursday. It's not Chris Camillo. It's someone else. I don't want to say who it is, but you guys will find out on Friday. It'll be posted immediately on Friday. So Thursday we're recording. Friday it'll be out. I think you guys will enjoy it. It'll be for Basis Points. I'll leave the link for anyone who has not checked out that new pod that Steve and I started. But I think it'll be a pretty epic first 3 guests we have on the podcast. And so we will keep going from there. All right. It's 24K gold. That's funny. That's actually funny. All right. So, yeah, that's it. That is it. We got a green day. Again, I wouldn't be too excited given, we've been through this before, but feeling good is not a crime about your portfolio going up. Maybe hesitate a little bit on buying heavy into the strength. Just give it a couple days. Let's see if this momentum has the ability to continue. But if you like Meta here at 670, if it goes back to 650 next week, you just can't be upset, right? So some of these entries over the past couple weeks have been pretty decent, like Microsoft at 380, if these gains can hold. But if not, then it's the same period of chop, and my way to hedge against that is covered calls. And today is really a great day to sell covered calls. Now, if today is the bottom and we start spiking up, those covered calls will get called away. You have to be okay with that. But if today is just one green day in the midst of chop, then maybe those calls can print. Okay, cool. That's it. We are done for the day. We are done. Let's do the word of the day, and then we'll get out of here. I don't know if anyone's doing Broadcom earnings. You guys should pressure Tanner into doing it. When Tanner goes live at 1 o'clock, you guys should pressure him into doing Broadcom. I think he would want to. If enough people ask, I think he would want to, because he's not going to the event. Roy will be here, though, so I'll see Roy soon, but Tanner will not be at the event. So he should be free. Maybe Jose, but Tanner for sure probably is going to be free. Evan, thanks for becoming a channel member. Appreciate you. Broccoli Bob. Broccoli's an OG. Broccoli has been watching since we had 40 people here live every day. So thank you, Mr. Broccoli Bob, as well, for being a channel member and for being here. All right, word of the day. What do we got? Fastidious. Fastidious. Okay, I'm going to assume the A and the S is like an I, fastidious, instead of a A. I'm going to go fastidious. If this thing is actually fastidious, I'm going to be so pissed, but I'm going to go fastidious. Very attention to detail, extremely careful about accuracy, cleanliness, or precision. I am 100% fastidious about how I pronounce words. Very careful about accuracy, precision, all that stuff. All right, let's see if we got it. Fastidious. This is what I'm going with, okay? It's too easy to be fastidious. That's what normal emit would do. Normal emit would be like fast-idious. Why not? That's how you speak words. But given our run on these word of the days, it's always some like manipulated version of how the letters should sound. So I'm going for fastidious. And I feel like it's a better bet than actually going for fastidious. All right, here we go. How do we say this shit? Here we go.
Fastidious.
You try to actually be different for once. You try to act like the stock market and think for the future, think ahead, price things in. Sometimes it doesn't work. Why is it actually fastidious? Like, dude, I literally could have crushed this pronunciation if I went with my gut. This is why you always have to go with your gut. Like, literally, sometimes your gut will be, but you should always go with your intuition. This is so stupid.
Fastidious.
I also feel like I've heard this word before, and people say it is fastidious. That's kind of another reason I thought. I'm not trolling, bro. I'm genuinely not trolling. Like, people have seen this word, but like I feel like I've heard this word so many times, and maybe I hear it real quickly, and it sounds like fastidious. I also thought it was too obvious to be like fast and idious. Like that's how you normally should speak, and that's not how these word of the days have been going. This is ridiculous, dude.
Fastidious.
That's actually hilarious. All right, next time I'm going to my intuition. Next time, I'm going with my intuition. Admit I'm monitoring your pronunciation and you missed it. I'm sorry. Next time. Hopefully next time. All right, S&P, as I'm leaving, almost the high of the day, 680, 630. Let's see if we can keep it up, folks. Amit talks like a fast idiot. Okay, that was good. That was really good. That's actually great. I should have said that one. That's great. Reminder, this guy was a debate champion. Yes. That was hilarious. That was funny. All right, 686 S&P. Pounds are almost 153. Let's see if we can keep this green momentum. Intel up 5% as well. Wow, Intel pumping means this thing's been dead for like 3 weeks now. This is one of those green days. This is one of those green days. And hopefully, we can keep the momentum. All right, so I will be back tomorrow on the market close, 3:45 as usual. Again, there will not be a close today. There will not be a morning open. Mike, thank you for the 20 gifted. You did not have to do that, but thank you. 20 of you guys just got a bunch of gifted subs from Mr. Mike. Alex, you got a gifted. Kyle, you got a gifted. Krishna, you got a gifted. Zam, Judd, Legit, Scott, Channing, Bush Money. All of you guys got gifted. It's courtesy of Mike. Mikey, thank you so much. Again, spreading around the blessings. Really appreciate that. There's nothing special if you get a gifted membership. It just supports the channel, $5 a month. So for anyone who does support, really appreciate that. LA meetup again. It is happening March 28th. Very excited to see a bunch of people there. And yeah, we are going to keep doing what we got to do and try to see if we can navigate this market the best that we can. Timothy, thank you for becoming a channel member again. No, it's been almost 2 years. I've been doing this now. I started 2024 seriously doing this. So yeah, it was 2 years. 2024 January started. We're in 2026 March. It's been 2 years of like seriously doing this every single day. And I really appreciate everyone who has been part of it. Why are you guys spamming cleanliness? Why is everyone spamming that word? There's no way I'm saying that freaking word wrong. Why is everyone? Dude, if I'm saying cleanliness wrong, I swear on my life, if I'm actually
Cleanliness.
Okay, this is time to end the stream. That's it. I'm done. I am done for the day. I'm done for the next 24 hours. I am actually done for the next. In what world is that cleanliness? It says clean. See, this is what you try to do. After fast and idiot sounding out, you say, oh, cleanliness. That's how you say words. I was like, why were you guys spamming that shit? Apparently that's not how you say it. But this is why I went counterintuitive. I just feel like I can't trust anything. Not my intuition, not anything when it comes to... It's really cleanliness?
Cleanliness.
Also, why does she sound like that? Google always has these weird people that pronounce stuff. We got to go back to college, bro. We got to go back to middle school. Forget college, dude. We got to go. This is getting stupid. This is why I need 12 hours off. I need 12 hours to go reevaluate and learn how to speak before I come back. Cleanliness, huh? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Again, deeply means a lot. Mike, thank you for the gifted memberships. And again, thank you for everyone who joins morning and afternoon. If I don't say it enough, I am extremely grateful for the people that show up every day, for the people that watch the daily recaps. I mean, it's the greatest opportunity I have, I think, on the planet to be able to get here every day and proliferate my ideas and my thoughts in front of a screen. And I'm just very blessed, very grateful to be able to do this every single day. Whether the market's up or down, we're going to navigate it together. But just the ability to be here, do this, it's what I love to do. Ever since I was little, I wanted to perform. And although this is stock market financial news content, it is a performance for me every single day. And I take that very seriously. And I just want to make sure it continues to grow and stays special for the people that are here. And that's why I get really annoyed when I have to miss a day. But it's not because I want to. It's not because I've lost the love for doing this. And hopefully I never lose the love for doing this. And you guys being here every day really continues to, make me absolutely love doing this every single day, no matter how many times I mess up on saying words. But the excitement, the energy, the passion is always there. It's always there. Even on the bad days, it's always there. Even when your stock is down and this and that, it's always there because you get to do this, right? Sometimes remember you get to do it, which is why it matters. Soybean tacos, thank you for the $10 super chat. That's a hell of a name, soybean tacos. We needed some of those. We needed Trump to taco when he talked about soybeans back in October. So appreciate you, man. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Thank you all for being here. Means the world. I will see you guys on the market close on Thursday. Hopefully we stick with this green. We got some earnings after the bell. We got a Robinhood event. I'll be live tweeting it. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see all those updates. And yeah, I'll be back on Thursday on the close. Thank you, everybody. Means the world. Love you all. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.